Chapter 365. At this moment, the people who came back were all outsiders. And just now Luo Laoforan had also told her some things that she didn't know. Those who came in included Jingwan's maternal grandmother, as well as her maternal aunt who came to the capital a few months ago, as well as her maternal aunt's cousin who had not yet married. Her maternal aunt, whose face was thicker than the city walls, had named her third brother Luo Jinghua by name and even righteously wanted to take her daughter as a concubine, vainly attempting to take the position of a second wife and even relying on the status of a relative to be above the official wife. Also, her younger sister-in-law had designs on Li Hongyuan, but in the end, she was almost directly pressed into the river by Li Hongyuan's people and was killed. It wasn't that there weren't people who came to propose marriage because of Jingwan, attempting to climb up the ranks of Jin Qinhuang Fu in a roundabout way. Unfortunately, this maternal aunt didn't like the other party's family background at all. As for her younger sister-in-law, no one cared about her, dragging it out until now. Seeing that she was moving closer and closer to becoming an old lady, she still refused to leave the capital no matter what. Knowing that Jingwan didn't like them, they still shamelessly came to the Luo family's door today. It was nothing more than letting people see that they had a good relationship with Jin Qinhuang Fei, paving the way for the future. And the Luo family was worried that if they didn't let them in, they would cause a ruckus outside the door. At that time, the one who would lose face would not only be the Luo family, but also Jingwan. Of the three aunts, eldest aunt was naturally the most familiar with her and had the best relationship with Yuan Xiaoqiao. Speaking of which, Yuan Xiaoqiao was already married and her actions were quite swift. The main reason was that she had pushed it back until next year as she was slightly older. Another reason was probably that eldest aunt really liked the man. He was the son of the governor of the capital. After all, Luo Peishan had been promoted to Minister of Appointments, Jingwan had become Jin Qinhuang Fei, and Yuan Xiaoqiao's father was in the Ministry of Appointments. It was impossible for her status not to rise. The man who came to propose marriage naturally had a better family background, so it was normal for eldest aunt to be satisfied. Second aunt's family also seemed to be shameless. On the day of Jingwan's coming-of-age ceremony, they also schemed against Luo Jinghua. In the end, they implicated Luo Jingming and directly angered old Madame Luo, who forbade them from coming to visit again. Today, they came to the Luo family because the Luo family didn't chase them away. As for third aunt, Jingwan really hadn't interacted with her alone before. She also hadn't interacted with her cousins in the family. Third aunt's temperament seemed to be a little indifferent to fame and fortune, and the children she brought up were more or less similar to her. Before the Lantern Festival of the first lunar month, the eldest cousin was pregnant again, and the second cousin also had good news. Now, they were both out of confinement. The two babies were separated by 2 days, and they were both girls. The eldest cousin's first child was a boy, so it was not a big deal that it was a girl, but the cousin's in-laws were a little dissatisfied. However, with the Luo family status, they did not dare to say anything on the surface. Because the child was young, they did not bring it along. These people basically came together. Although their expressions were as calm as possible, most of them were unable to express their emotions. Envy, jealousy, surprise, and surprise could all be seen clearly. Not to mention, Madame Luo was an old and experienced person. She basically knew what was going on in a flash. What good things did Wan bring for grandmother today? Show me the gift list, Madame Luo said with a smile. The gift list for Madame Luo and the Minister of Personnel Affairs was already in the hands of Madame Luo's mother. When she heard Madame Luo's words, she hurriedly presented it with a smile. Madame Luo's eyesight was not bad. Opening the gift list, she understood. Sure enough, the gifts were too generous, causing these people to have different thoughts. Although the gifts given to her were definitely thicker than those of the other branches, with her understanding of Jingwan, she could also be sure that the other gifts would not be bad, even if it was the second branch that she had disagreements with. This granddaughter of hers, had never valued worldly possessions. In addition, Jin Qinhuang, who was diligently giving her good things, was probably still stuffing her with money to spend. So she probably did not care about these things. You want to empty out Jin Qinhuang Fu? Madame Luo tilted her head and asked Jingwan with a smile. How could I? I bought them all in Jiangnan. Wang Ye gave me a lot of banknotes and let me buy them for fun. As a result, I bought them all the way and accidentally bought too much. Jingwan said a little bitterly. When I bought them, I didn't take it seriously. After returning to the capital, I found out when I was tidying up. Wang Ye dotes on you, so don't take the money seriously. It's not like the wind blew it over. Grandmother, don't worry, it's just this time. It's just a coincidence. In the future, even if I want to squander it, I probably won't have the chance. Madame Luo nodded and did not say anything more. And these things, she accepted them with a clear conscience and did not feel that there was any problem. Then, whether it was those who wanted to say sour words or those who wanted to compliment, they all swallowed their words back into their stomachs. Today, they would come to the Luo family. Jingwan did not think about it, but even if she thought about it, she would not bring the things she gave them to the Luo family. Afterwards, Jingwan talked with them. She could act coquettishly and foolishly in front of Madame Luo. In front of them, she could be easygoing, but she could not completely put down the airs of a Qin Wang Fei. If people felt that a Qin Wang Fei was no different from an ordinary woman in the inner residence who could say anything and still reprimand her like a junior, then it would damage Li Hongyuan's face and even the dignity of the imperial family. Therefore, lowering herself was not something that could be done if she wanted to. If the relationship between them became too big, it was not something that could be won over with a few words. Yuan Xiaoqiao followed her mother and did not speak up at this time. At first, she was a little nervous and worried that the relationship between them would become distant. But after receiving a look from Jingwan, she was relieved. She secretly made a face and then lowered her eyebrows and hid her eyes, pretending to be obedient. Jingwan laughed secretly. Well, she thought that this cousin of hers had restrained her temperament after getting married. Sure enough, it was easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change a person's nature. It turned out that it was all a pretense. Except for that aunt's family and second aunt's family, Jingwan basically did not neglect the others. According to the relationship between them, she could more or less say a few words with a smile. Her attitude was just right so that they did not dare to overstep their boundaries. They also did not feel that Jingwan had become arrogant and looked down on them because of her high status. She did not look like someone who had only been a Qin Wang Fei for a little more than half a year. As for those two families, Jingwan made it clear that she did not like them. She did not like them and had no interest in pretending to be magnanimous and forgiving. If you were magnanimous and forgiving, some people would only take an inch and want a mile. When she was talking to her two cousins, this child has been born. Why didn't someone send a message to me in Jiangnan? Eldest cousin sister Luo Jingshu immediately smiled and said, Prince is on a business trip in Jiangnan. The Wang Fei has to serve Prince on the way. It is difficult to disturb him because of a junior. Eldest sister is right. That is the reason. Luo Jingqiang also smiled and agreed. It is a happy occasion to have a son in the family. How can there be a disturbance? In any case, their Wang Fei's aunt will definitely come back. This gift will definitely not be lacking. Jingwan smiled and nodded. When we return, I will double the 3 baptismal gifts and the full moon gift. See, it was right not to say this before. There are so many things, aren't there? Luo Jingshu teased. Everyone else also laughed. The atmosphere was quite harmonious, except for some places that were not harmonious. When the children are older, bring them to the prince's mansion to play. Let me take a good look at them. Daughters are like little cotton-padded jackets. Take good care of them. In the future, they will definitely be the best. Jingwan said meaningfully. Everyone was smart and naturally understood. Luo Jingshu tilted her head and glanced at Luo Jingqiang. She was still fine. She had a son by her side. This third younger sister wanted to support her second younger sister. However, there was another layer of meaning. As long as they were good girls, as long as their Wang Fei aunt was around, their future would not be bad. Giving a pile of good things, compared to promising their children a future, was actually nothing. It was very comforting. Naturally, her smile became more sincere. Luo Jingxiang also understood in her heart and was very grateful. As long as her daughter received a few good words from her aunt, her status would immediately rise. Those people in her husband's family would not dislike her. Instead, they would pamper and love her as if she was their precious treasure. Even her own status would be more stable. However, the prerequisite for a good future was a good girl. Whether it was in the past or now, they clearly knew that Jingwan was not a stingy person. She was willing to help her family if she could. However, if their character was not good enough and they did something disgusting, then it would be embarrassing. Even if they met her face to face, she would not bother to say a word to them, let alone receive benefits from her. Therefore, it was very important for the children's upbringing. Regardless of whether those who had a bad relationship with Jingwan regretted it or not. In short, they were determined to teach their juniors well. As for the Luo family, who were not present, they would definitely know what Jingwan meant. This would be a good start. Moreover, they would not know that the princess consort was just the beginning of Jingwan's marriage. In the future, she would be the mother of the world and become the most honorable woman in the world. As for the Luo family, they would be the only relatives. Even if they did not have a high position and high salary, their status was unparalleled. As the saying goes, if one could not climb up to the emperor, then he would naturally climb up to the empress. Climbing up to the empress was naturally to build a relationship with the Luo family, and marriage was still the most mainstream way to build a relationship. There were many high officials, nobles, and even members of the imperial family in the capital. As for the young masters and young ladies of the Luo family, there were definitely not enough. Then those who were close to the Luo family, as well as those who were purely on good terms with Jingwan, would also be promoted to the top. In this way, even if their status was not high enough, as long as they got Jingwan's word, they would definitely not have to worry about a good marriage. If their character was not good enough, Jingwan would definitely not do things that would cheat people and create resentful couples. Of course, this was something that would happen more than 10 years later. So let's not talk about it for now. As they were gossiping, the masters of the Luo family gradually came over. The adults were still reserved and did not show too much emotion, but the younger ones were quite happy at this time. Jingwan had also prepared the gifts with great care. As long as it was a child, regardless of whether it was the previous generation or the next generation, she would give it to them. Although there were some differences in the status of the legitimate wife and concubines, the difference was not big. The other gifts were given to the husband and wife as a unit. Speaking of which, as the elders, they understood Jingwan's temperament. As the legitimate mother, perhaps when she saw Jingwan giving the concubines' children gifts, she had some thoughts in her heart, but she did not want to embezzle them. At this time, how stupid would she be to do such a thing? As for the third branch, Madame Lu's thoughts had faded. She wholeheartedly taught the legitimate son and took care of a legitimate daughter. She did not expect Luo Jingying to marry into a good family again. It would be good if she could spend the rest of her life in the Luo family. As for the younger concubine's children, Madame Lu did not treat them harshly. The eldest concubine's son, Madame Lu, also married Luo Jingming's wife into the family. Madame Lu treated this young lady of the Honglu Temple's official's family with a relatively high status, but she did not make things difficult for her. She did not say that she was a good mother-in-law, but she definitely did not make things difficult for her. She just let the young couple live their own lives. The group of younger ones all smiled and thanked Jingwan. Older sister princess consort first, followed by older sister princess consort behind. The sweet-mouthed ones kept saying auspicious words, while the clumsy ones anxiously followed. The more anxious they were, the more they stuttered, making everyone laugh. The last one was Luo Jingda's eldest son. Although he could walk now, he was not very stable. He swayed from side to side, which was very amusing. He also did not want to be left out and walked forward. He followed the older one and vaguely called out, "Older sister princess consort." His mother, Madame Lu, followed by his side. She gently slapped his little butt and laughed. "Little brat, what are you saying? You should call princess consort aunt. Aunt, do you understand?" Jingwan reached out and picked up the little one. This child had always been weak when he was in his mother's womb. Although the reason was found later and he was not born prematurely, he was still relatively weak. After raising him for more than a year, he was now chubby and very cute. Princess Consort, don't hold him. This little one is very active and his skin is tough. Be careful not to hurt him. How could I? As a matter of fact, Jingwan was hugging him tightly. With her strength, how could she not be able to control the little guy? Madame Luo reached out and pinched the little one's chubby hand. Brother Rue is usually a little shy with strangers, but he is very close to Wanwan. It has been more than half a year, but he still seems to remember. That's right. Our brother Rue doesn't remember anyone, but he can't forget Aunt Princess Consort. If it wasn't for Aunt Princess Consort, you little brat might not have been born. Madame Lu said with a smile. This was her precious baby. Every time she thought that he might be gone at that time, her heart would ache. That's right. That's our brother Rue's fate. Jingwan liked these simple and cute children very much. If they were really gone, she would definitely feel bad. Aunt. Brother Rue was happy in Jingwan's arms and rubbed against her mischievously. Brother Rue also agrees with Aunt's words, right? Jingwan smiled and could not stop kissing his little face. The little one held on to Jingwan's face and kissed her back. This time, Madame Luo was amused. If your uncle sees you, you little brat, you will be punished. Jingwan was a lot more thick-skinned now, so she did not mind her grandmother's teasing. The others also laughed, including the little ones. Although they were not sensible, they were also laughing happily. It's so lively. Sun Yijia came in with her daughter, Sister Xian. Perhaps the little one saw the little brother, so she also stretched out her hand in a babbling voice. Oh, this little one also recognizes people. The people next to her laughed. Sun Yijia was straightforward and directly carried Sister Xian over. Thus, one on each side of Jingwan's legs, the two little ones were very familiar with each other and were very affectionate with each other. Princess Consort likes children so much. When are you going to have two? If you ask me, I might have already been born. Even if Jingwan did not like them, they still did not want to be lonely and wanted to make their presence known. However, when they heard this, Jingwan did not do anything, but the others were silent. Little Wang and Sun Yijia quickly reached out and wanted to take the children back. If they were really born, the two children would make a fuss. What if something happened? Don't worry, it's fine. The mansion doctor in the mansion will check my pulse at any time. Besides, if there is something wrong with my body, I will be more or less aware. I am very good. However, because of her status, Jingwan did not continue to carry the two little ones. Since the children were returned, she did not mention this again and did not mention it. After that, the third branch and the fourth branch arrived at almost the same time. This time, Jingwan naturally noticed the unfamiliar face, second sister-in-law Zhao. She was the legitimate daughter of the Honglu Temple. Although she was not very beautiful, she was still delicate and good-looking. She smiled before speaking and seemed to have a good temper. I finally see second sister-in-law today. Greetings, Princess Consort. Zhao bowed. We are family. There is no need to be so polite. Qingzhu, who was serving at the side, quickly presented the box in her hand. Jingwan took it in her hand. When second sister-in-law married into the family, I was still in Jiangnan. This is a small gift for me. Second sister-in-law, I hope you don't mind. Jingwan did not know about other happy events, but she knew about this marriage. Although they had sent gifts back before the marriage, this meeting gift still had to be made up. Logically, Jingwan should be the one receiving the gift. However, her status was high, so she became the one giving the gift. Zhao quickly took it. Thank you, Princess Consort. I am so happy. How can I dislike it? Second sister-in-law looks like a good person. If second brother bullies you in the future, just tell me. I will help you deal with him. Zhao sure blushed and muttered, my husband treats me very well. As a bride who had just married into the family, she was naturally the target of everyone's teasing. For a moment, it was very lively and cheerful. However, Jingwan inadvertently noticed that little Wang's smile was a little forced. Obviously, she had something on her mind. After a while, Madame Luo dismissed everyone and asked them to do what they needed to do. I know you have a private room with Yijia and Xiao Qiao. Go, go. Madame Luo waved at Jingwan impatiently. Jingwan held Madame Luo's arm. Grandmother, are you disliking your granddaughter? Mischievous. Madame Luo tapped her forehead. Go. Jingwan nodded with a smile. By the way, grandmother, I think something is wrong with eldest sister-in-law. What's the matter? Madame Luo's expression became indifferent. What can it be? The woman in your eldest brother's room is pregnant. No woman can be happy. Back then, when little Wang's pregnancy was unstable, she still said a few words. But now, she was too lazy to care. If she didn't care about her son's room, who would have the patience to care about her grandson? Jingwan frowned slightly and could only sigh. To be honest, even if he was her biological brother, she was already overstepping her boundaries by not allowing him to touch any woman other than third sister-in-law. There was no reason for her to care about her cousin. Grandmother, you can reveal that I don't like concubines. Madame Luo glanced at Jingwan and sighed. You are still the same. Jingwan didn't care. I can't help it. If I don't like it, I don't like it. No matter how many lifetimes it is, this won't change. Eldest sister-in-law is a good woman. If I can help a little, I will. I can't do anything more. However, if Wang my likes and dislikes, it will probably affect some people's career. Madame Luo didn't doubt these words. If Jin Qinhuang's feelings towards his granddaughter didn't change, then whether it was for Jingwan or Jin Qinhuang himself, the more concubines there were in the inner court, especially those who favored the concubines and neglected the wife, they would definitely not be able to gain any advantage in front of him. Not to mention other things. Jin only guards one wife. What is the meaning of you courtiers hugging left and right? If his wife was unhappy, then he would cut them even more, cut them to death. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654054. HTML chapter error. Please click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website. Chapter 366. Since Wan has said so, then this old woman will meddle in other people's business again. Who asked this granddaughter to be the apple of her eye? Moreover, this granddaughter of hers was not only for her sister-in-law, but also for the Luo family. The Luo family did not seem obvious now, but in the future, if there were no accidents, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it would be like adding oil to a fire. Everything had to be done carefully. There were some things that were completely ignored now, but in the future, it would become worse, and it would be easy for others to take advantage of. Grandmother, I'll have to trouble you. But it's better not to kill anyone, no matter if it's a big one or a small one, especially this small one. Because she has no right to choose, she is really innocent. In Jingwan's opinion, either she did not want to get pregnant, or if she did, she should not easily abort it. If it was because she had no choice, then it was fine. If it was purely for some kind of benefit, then it was ruthless. But if it was purely for some kind of evil, then it was absolutely unforgivable to let the woman suffer in the end. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Don't worry. This will be a lesson to him. If he is only afraid of affecting his future, then he will have a child and kill that Tongfang. This kind of person is not worth nurturing. Even if he can establish a household for a while, it won't last long. Jingwan suddenly thought of Patriarch Pei, who had worked hard all his life, putting benefits above all, and used the name of the family as a banner. In the end, before they returned to the capital, it was said that he was bedridden and could not get out of bed. That's enough. Don't worry about these trivial matters. You're just doing chores in the prince's mansion, and you have a bunch of people to help you. Now that you're back at home, you're worrying about this and that. What's wrong with you? If the prince finds out, you might not be allowed to come back in the future. Old Madame Luo patted Jingwan's hand. Go. He dares. Jingwan stubbornly retorted. Whether he dares or not, you know best in your heart. Old Madame Luo teased. Jingwan immediately wilted. That bastard really dared. Although she usually had the final say, but once someone became unyielding, she really could not change his mind. Old Madame Luo's mocking expression became more and more obvious. People like Jin Qinhuang, from some of his actions and style, could be seen that he was an absolutely powerful person with a strong desire for control. If he didn't want to make him listen to others for everything, it was simply a fool's dream. It was because she understood this point that old Madame Luo knew that he accommodated and pampered Jingwan's eyes. If one's mind was not firm, then one's eyes, then one would be spoiled. If they were spoiled, their temperament would be different. To a certain extent, it would be easy for them to be annoyed by others. Then, all the love and affection might be taken away. It would be fine if they didn't get it in the first place, but if they got it and it was mercilessly taken away, that would be a very cruel thing. No matter how a person's changes, even from one extreme to the other, if there was a person who remained the same from beginning to end, then that was an even more inconceivable thing. In this regard, old Madame Luo had never said anything to Jingwan. Firstly, even if this granddaughter was spoiled, she would not be that bad. Secondly, perhaps she was actually looking forward to seeing her granddaughter's spoiled appearance. The Haitang elegant residence was still kept. If there were no accidents, after 6 or 7 years, this courtyard would be given to Xian Jie to live in. The so-called accident was that the 2 elders of the Luo family had both passed away in the past few years. The Luo brothers had split up and the second branch had moved out of this residence. The possibility of this accident should be relatively small. However, Jingwan also pondered in her heart. Later on, she would let Gong Jiu come to the Luo family to take the 2 elders' pulse. Jingwan now had more and more trust in Gong Jiu's medical skills. When Jingwan arrived at the Haitang elegant residence, as expected, Sun Yijia and Yuan Xiaoqiao were waiting there. Greetings, Wang Fei. The 2 pretended to greet her. It was clearly a very normal thing, but Jingwan suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning. That's enough, you 2. Are you deliberately making fun of me? When the 2 heard this, they stood up straight and giggled. You are now a proper Qin Wang Fei. As the saying goes, etiquette cannot be abolished. All right, then you 2 can squat. Even if you kneel, I don't mind. In any case, I am a Qin Wang Fei. I can accept it. I'm not afraid of my lifespan being shortened. Jingwan brushed her sleeves and prepared to sit down. I'm calling you fat, and you're panting. Sun Yijia said as she made a move to pinch her. Jingwan hurriedly dodged, and the 3 of them laughed together. Because of their status, the gap between them disappeared without a trace. After a long while, they sat down to talk. To tell the truth, when I saw Wanwan's previous appearance, I really felt that she wasn't on the same side as us. She was dignified and had style, making people not dare to act rashly. I'm really afraid that our relationship would become estranged. Yuan Xiaoqiao's heart was distressed. If it really became like that, it would be quite regretful. You're thinking too much. We still don't know what kind of person Wan Mimi is. For the dignity of the imperial family and Jin Qinhuang, on the surface, it should be maintained. In private, don't mention being a Qin Wang Fei even. I think that Wan Mimi is still Wan Mimi. This point will never change. Sun Yijia adapted well. After all, she had interacted with many people in the imperial family. A lot of people might have changed, but some things would never change. Yuan Xiaoqiao didn't understand the ambiguous words that Sun Yijia used, but Jingwan was clear. This was just a metaphor, or did this sister-in-law's best friend notice something? Sun Yijia just happened to meet Jingwan's eyes. She smiled and didn't say anything. Don't say Sun Yijia's temperament now, whether it was internally or externally, was much gentler. If compared to before Jingwan knew her, those who didn't know would definitely think that they were 2 different people. She used to be proud, distant, and aloof. Now, she was gentle, and did things straightforwardly. Perhaps she still didn't like to interact with people, but it didn't mean that she wasn't good at interacting with people. The second branch didn't care about the general affairs of the Luo family. Therefore, she was still very idle. Most of the time, she would take care of her husband and children. When she went out for a very formal occasion, she would put on makeup to cover the scars on her face. When she was at home, she basically didn't wear any makeup. The Luo family members were used to it. Sun Yijia's relationship with the people and things of the past could be said to be very clean. Originally, because of her temperament, there were a lot of people who flattered and fawned over her, but there were basically no true friends. Her face was disfigured and she got married, but the husband she married didn't need her diplomatic relations. Those people naturally broke off completely. Her mother, Duke Foreign, was still ill and couldn't get better. For the time being, there were no signs of death. She wanted to go back and take a look, but when she went back once or twice, her grandmother didn't even give her food and sent her away. She just wanted her to live her own life in peace. Don't look at, don't ask, and don't care about the troublesome things in Duke Dinghua's mansion. Duke Dinghua's mansion was really quite chaotic now. Because old Madame Sun was still alive, the brothers of Duke Dinghua were all in the mansion. They all inherited the virtue of the old Duke Dinghua. They were greedy and lustful, so naturally, there were many children. Among the brothers of the older generation, sisters-in-law, and the brothers and sisters of the younger generation, cousins and cousins, there were also cousins outside. Without the master to hold the line, all of them wanted to compete for power and profit. The original contradictions instantly broke out 10 times or 100 times. The men were busy with external affairs. Not only were they fighting with other factions, but they were also doing their best to be in power. Not to mention other things, Sun Yijia's eldest brother, because Sun Yilin was not around, wanted to completely control Duke Dinghua's mansion. Who knew that the second brother, who had always been very weak, suddenly appeared. He was originally a quiet person, but he didn't expect that he also held a lot of power. The brothers fought against each other like fire and water. If they didn't fight to the death, they would never let it go. After Sun Yijia got some news, she didn't care anymore. Anyway, in her opinion, Duke Dinghua's mansion would be finished sooner or later. It was good enough that the Sun family could still maintain their status as a third-class family. It could be said that she sighed again and again that she was lucky. Her husband was ambitious. The most important thing was that he was not fickle in love. He was very good to her and the children. When a woman got married, it was like a second reincarnation. That was all she wanted. Sun Yijia felt that she had nothing more to ask for in this life. Of course, she still lacked a son. She just needed to take care of her body for another year and have another child. Even if she didn't have a son in the end, it might be a little regretful, but her life could be said to be perfect. Just by looking at your face, I can tell that you must be living a very good life. I'm too lazy to ask if you're doing well. We don't have the chance to go to Jiangnan. What fun is there? Jingwan brushed away Sun Yijia's hand. What are you doing? If you have something to say, let's talk nicely. Don't hit me. Where did you learn this from? You're always pinching people's soft flesh. What kind of behavior is that? Sun Yijia sneered and grabbed Jingwan's hand. She even pinched Jingwan's face before she stopped. Your face is as thick as my daughter's. Well, it turned out that the reason for her cheap hands was because the children were too soft and tender. Therefore, she developed the habit of touching and pinching people's faces. Yuan Xiaoqiao's line of sight fell on Jingwan's exposed arm. She grabbed it and pulled up the sleeve. On the snow-white and delicate skin, there were red plum blossoms. What is this? What is it? That gaze was as if she had caught hold of something big. She was excited and excited. Jingwan was speechless at these two girlfriends who were becoming more and more strange. Married people don't know what this is. You don't have it on your body? Yuan Xiaoqiao choked on Jingwan's words. She coughed. I do have it, but it's not as exaggerated as yours. Jin Qin Wang really likes Wan Mimi. I can finally rest assured. Sun Yijia acted as if she was marrying off her daughter. She was somewhat gratified and somewhat melancholy. I say, you two, that's enough. Sure enough, unmarried girls were pure and innocent. After marriage, they all became vulgar. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Hurry and tell us about Jiangnan's scenery. Compared to before, Jingwan was more detailed now. Her attitude was also more casual. After all, they were of the same age. Moreover, they were close friends. As the saying goes, the things that can't be said to elders can be said to girlfriends. This mentality was completely different, hiding the things that can't be said. Although Jingwan didn't speak in cadence, the two listened happily and yearned for it. If you want to go, it's not very difficult. Cousin won't talk about it. Your husband is sent out to Jiangnan. In any case, he's not the eldest son. It doesn't matter if you don't stay to serve your parents-in-law. It's even simpler for third sister-in-law. Just let third brother take you and your mother out. There's still more than a year before the next exam. It's just that it's easy to say. Sun Yijia reached out to pinch her face again. A good woman uses her mouth, not her hands. Jingwan glared at her. Then I'm really sorry. Your sister-in-law is a bad woman. Sun Yijia continued to pinch her with a smile. What happened to being a virtuous woman from a prestigious family? Her style had changed too much. Returned the Sun Yijia of the past. Things are really not that simple. My family wants to let my husband stay in the capital and gain experience in the Hamlin Academy. I guess my father-in-law and the others also want my grandfather to help and slightly raise my husband's rank. Whether or not he will be sent out in the future is another matter. Moreover, my mother-in-law wants to have a grandson. Sister-in-law has already given birth to 3 daughters. There's a concubine son, but because my mother-in-law doesn't like his mother, the child is naturally not liked. I've only been married for 2 months, and they've already started to stare at my belly. I think that if I can't give birth to this son, I won't be able to leave happily. Yuan Xiaoqiao was her mother's only daughter. She knew very well how much her mother had suffered in order to get a son. However, whether it was her father or her grandmother, they were both good people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to live her life. She might not have been as lucky as her mother. Therefore, even if her mother-in-law's family didn't say anything, she was still unhappy that they kept staring at her belly. Yuan Xiaoqiao didn't say these things. However, Yuan Xiaoqiao wasn't very good at controlling her emotions. Jingwan and Sun Yijia weren't blind. Jingwan didn't know about the capital governor's family situation, but Sun Yijia knew. Every family had its own difficulties. This couldn't be helped. Moreover, since the other party was carefully selected by eldest aunt, he must be a good person. Jingwan didn't ask too much. You didn't tell me that you got married either. I'll make up for the dowry I gave you later. It's a big one. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Anyway, Wan, you're super rich now. It doesn't matter how much you give me. Obviously, Yuan Xiaoqiao didn't quite understand Jingwan's main intention. However, there was no need to fuss over such a small matter. It was fine as long as the person who should understand it understood. Actually, life now is very good. It's something I didn't even dare to think about in the past. Therefore, I'm very satisfied. Although I have some yearning for the outside world, I don't have to go. There's still more than a year before the next examination. It's better for your third brother to stay in the capital to prepare for the examination. After all, he has grandfather to guide him. Also, your third brother spends a lot of time on painting. This arrangement is good. If you want to go out and have a look, you can wait until your third brother leaves. Yes, Sun Yijia wasn't greedy. She really cherished what she had. I've painted some paintings. When you go to the prince's mansion, call Ing Shuang. I'll show you. Naturally, the two nodded happily. Speaking of Ing Shuang, how is she recently? She's nurturing the baby. She's been pregnant for about 6 months. She's put on a lot of weight. Jingwan chuckled. She's been gone for half a year. She's met with so many happy things. It couldn't be better if they were all happy things. When it came to children, it was inevitable that the topic would come back to Jingwan. However, before they could speak, Princess Consort, missing requests an audience. A servant reported, missing. Jingwan was confused. Where did this missing come from? Luo Xing is an orphan in the clan. Didn't fourth sister die of an illness in Prince Rui's mansion? Third aunt lost her beloved daughter and wanted to adopt a girl from the clan to relieve her lovesickness. Unexpectedly, there was a girl in the clan who looked very similar to fourth sister. People would believe that they were twins. Coincidentally, this girl didn't have parents and relied on the clan to survive. Third aunt brought her back and raised her by her side. She changed her name to Xing. Sun Yijia explained. Jingwan immediately understood. Sure enough, third aunt was worried about Luo Jingying being outside. As expected, she used the simplest method to bring Luo Jingying back to her side. Jingwan wasn't surprised that she came to see her. In fact, Luo Jingying was among the gifts she prepared. Please come in. Princess Consort, missing is afraid of strangers. Does that mean that you can move? What is this? She is just a commoner. She came to visit the princess consort and asked the princess consort to move. How shameless must she be to do such a thing? Yuan Shaoqiao said indignantly. Obviously, she didn't know the truth. However, this matter involved the reputation of the imperial family. It was best not to know. She believed that there were only a few people in the minister's mansion who knew about this. It's not a big deal. Maybe this girl is really a little timid. I'll just go and take a look. It seemed that Luo Jingying had something to say to her, but did not want others to know. Seeing Jingwan get up and leave, Yuan Shaoqiao pursed her lips. Even if Wanwan is a princess consort, she is still like this. All right, since you know, there's no need to say more. Sun Yijia's thoughts were similar to Jingwan's. In the begonia house, there was a small pavilion not far from the courtyard. When Jingwan arrived, Luo Jingying was already waiting there. When Luo Jingying saw Jingwan, she stood up and greeted her politely. No need to be so polite. Have a seat. Jingwan looked at her. Although she was still dressed as a girl, she had changed a lot. As long as people didn't know the truth, no matter how similar they were, they wouldn't think that she and Luo Jingying were the same person. She used to be so flamboyant, but now she was plain and even dull. She looked a little lethargic and didn't have the vigor and vitality that people her age should have. She looked like a living dead person. Jingwan sighed in her heart. Luo Jingying was hateful in the past, but the damage she caused was limited. She had already committed suicide in front of her once. Selfishly, she let bygones be bygones. Of course, the premise was that she didn't do it again. Otherwise, there was no way she could be forgiven. Fourth sister, why did you want to see me? Although I look like Princess Consort's fourth sister, I don't deserve to be called by Princess Consort. Did she have to completely deny her past? Then, I'll call you Seeing. If there's anything you want to say, just say it. Luo Jingying was silent for a moment. She probably didn't expect Jingwan to accept it so easily. If the others weren't like her mother, they would talk endlessly or ignore her. She looked at Jingwan quietly. In fact, until now, she didn't understand why there was someone like Luo Jingwan in the world. How could she forgive others so easily? I heard that Luo Jingying used to target you and scheme against you. How could you forgive her? Jingwan laughed. Even now, she was still fussing about this. It's just a child's quarrel. Moreover, it's your own life. Whether you want to live a happy life or let some messy things and negative emotions disturb your life, the choice is in your own hands. So in the end, you still don't care about such a small person. Was she going down a dead end again? How she is has nothing to do with you, Seeing. Or is it because third aunt treated you as her substitute and you're not happy? Third aunt aside, Luo Jingying is Luo Seeing and Luo Seeing is Luo Seeing. If you think so, then why did you let the Luo Jingying of the past interfere with the current Luo Seeing? Seeing, you understand what I mean, right? Luo Jingying still looked at Jingwan quietly. Then, tears rolled down unconsciously, and she hurriedly wiped them away. In fact, she hadn't cried since she woke up from her coma after committing suicide. No matter how hard her mother hugged her and cried, no matter what she said, no matter how sorry she was, or how she would take good care of her in the future, she didn't feel anything. Now tears fell easily. She denied her past, but only verbally. Her heart was still brooding. Otherwise, if she really denied it and let it go, she wouldn't be like this now. "Thank you, Your Highness." Her mother only said the same things over and over again. If it happened once or twice, she might be moved, but if it happened too many times, she would be annoyed. Her mother asked her to forgive her, but how could she forgive her? Even if her mother was wrong, it was just some of the ideas she had instilled in her. But she also knew that she was the one who caused the situation in the end. The more she said, the more she would hate herself and be angry with her mother. In the past, she would make a big fuss, but now she maintained absolute silence. It turned out that she could actually completely let go in exchange for a complete new life. "I had a dream. I dreamed of Luo Jingying. She said that she owed Your Highness an apology and a thank you. She also hoped that Your Highness would be safe and have a smooth life. This humble girl will take her leave." Jingwan nodded. "You too." Luo Jingying left. As for whether she would truly be reborn, it was up to her. Jingwan returned to the inner courtyard. Sun Yijia and Yuan Xiaoqiao were chatting. When they saw her, they asked, "She left so quickly?" It was just a matter of a few words. She naturally left after saying that. Jingwan sat down. "What happened in the capital in the past 6 months?" "Actually, it's nothing much. It's probably because of what happened in Jiangnan that His Majesty didn't go to the Summer Palace. In any case, because His Majesty was in a bad mood, the imperial court and the imperial harem were all covered in dark clouds. Speaking of which, it has nothing to do with us. And people like grandfather, who didn't get involved in such matters, were also very calm. What's more interesting is that their concubines are all from opposing factions. For example, Prince Rui's 2 concubines. One is from a closely connected family of Duke Ding's manor by marriage. The other is from the Marquis Champion's manor and is Princess Gong's younger cousin. Prince Kang's concubine is the niece of the right Commander-in-Chief Shen Shuhan. The other concubines are basically in similar situations. The one with the least impact is probably Prince Wu. After all, because of his weak body, he didn't interfere with the imperial court's matters at all. Thus, it doesn't matter which family he marries. Speaking of which, these Wanya left the position of concubine largely because they wanted to rope in connections through marriage at crucial times. Now, they were lifting a stone and smashing it on their own feet. It's a pity that those concubines have purely become the family's abandoned children. And, as people from opposing factions, their husbands can't possibly treat them well. Those who have a bit of conscience may be raised as ornaments in the inner courtyard. Encountering those who fly into a rage out of humiliation and take their anger out on them. Who knows what kind of state they will be trampled on? Jingwan's voice was indifferent. In her heart, she hated Lu Chengdi's way of doing things. This way of doing things, other than harming those innocent women, could it have the effect of a copper coin? Even if the method of using in-laws to rope in people was curbed, there would still be other methods. Did he really think that his sons would be obedient? Isn't that so? Sun Yijia's heart was distressed. Wan, now that you're back, will His Majesty also directly appoint 1 or 2 concubines for Prince Jin? No matter what, Prince Jin is her most beloved son. She can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Yuan Xiaoqiao looked at Jingwan with some worry. Prince Jin cursed his wife. With that fate of his, it's already not bad to be able to meet Wan Mimi. Forget about those women with low status in the past. They don't have any status. Among the noble ladies, he still wants to hug them left and right? Dream on. With a wife like Wan Mimi, if he still does something to let Wan Mimi down, he should be struck by lightning. Sun Yijia's expression was cold. Yuan Xiaoqiao was a bit surprised by Sun Yijia's sudden change in attitude. "Yijia, you have an opinion about Prince Jin?" Although his reputation was bad before, after he was engaged to Wan, there didn't seem to be any news of him having an affair with other women. Now, it seems that he's treating Wan quite well. Can't we slightly change our view of him? I don't have an opinion about him. I have an opinion about Wan Mimi's husband. As Wan Mimi's husband, no matter how much he does, it's not enough. No matter how well he does, it's not good enough. Don't mention Yuan Xiao. Even Jingwan was a bit speechless. What was this? It seemed that she didn't have such high expectations for her own husband. You don't have to worry. If there really is such a matter, we will deal with it. At this moment, Jingwan thought of another matter. She vaguely knew where she was wrong. She rubbed her temples somewhat helplessly. To have such a husband, it was really a sweet burden. A certain person always wanted her to do something from time to time to prove that she cared about him. Was this a lack of security, or what? It shouldn't be possible that he didn't have a sense of security. After all, in this kind of background, she didn't have a choice. She couldn't get a divorce, and she couldn't have a second spring. As long as he didn't let go, she could only be held in the palm of his hand. In the countryside, there might be cases of married women eloping with others. For someone like her, if she dared to do that, on the surface, she wouldn't exterminate the family for the sake of face, but behind the scenes, she would definitely kill your entire family. Not to mention that the success rate of eloping was extremely low. Even if it was successful, she would still be able to find you at the ends of the earth. Therefore, the one who didn't have a sense of security was a woman, not a man. Even now, she wouldn't feel insecure, okay? Therefore, it was purely his heart's paranoia. Thinking of all these, Jingwan hooked the corner of her mouth and laughed to herself. That man was really becoming more and more attractive. What are you thinking about that you're laughing like this? Sun Yijia couldn't help but want to pinch her. Jingwan brushed away her hand. Go to one side, go to one side. Is there anything else? That smile on the corner of her mouth couldn't be suppressed. The two people at the side looked at each other. With such amorous feelings, it would be strange if there was no problem. It seemed that Jin Qinhuang treated her better than they expected. That's fine, they didn't need to worry about it. The other matter, it's probably that the Zhong Qinhuang Fu caught fire and suffered heavy casualties. Ruan Fangfei was directly burned into charcoal, and the other two Zifei of the Zhong Qinhuang also lost their lives. It's just that one died on the spot, and the other held on for a few more days. The Zhong Qinhuang himself could be considered lucky, but his injuries were also very serious, and he is still recuperating. As for the many heirs of the Zhong Qinhuang Fu, only 2 or 3 were saved, but they were basically infertile. Jingwan's breathing stopped. It was man-made. If it was just an accident, how could the casualties be so heavy? Many people thought so, but after investigating, they couldn't find the real culprit. In the end, they had to settle this matter as an accident. Jingwan slightly frowned. This matter was obviously problematic, and Jingwan's first reaction was that it was Ruan Fangfei's doing. However, Ruan Fangfei was trapped in the backyard of the Zhong Qinhuang Fu and was all alone. Did she have the ability to drag the entire Zhong Qinhuang Fu down with her? That one of her family definitely knew about this matter, but didn't tell her. She had to go back and properly ask. Is there anything else? Jingwan then asked, putting this matter aside for the time being. Other than that, it's just some trivial matters. It's nothing more than this family marrying off their daughter, that family marrying off their wife, and so on. Jingwan nodded. She felt that she should go back and directly ask the shadow guards who stayed in the capital. They definitely knew more than these 2 close friends' family members, and were clearer about it. After saying so much, time actually slipped away very quickly. Xianjie began to look for her mother. Although Xianjie was younger than Rui Ji by half a year, she didn't weigh much less. However, because her body was very fleshy, she didn't look very fat. Her pair of big eyes were like 2 juicy grapes, looking exceptionally lively. Jingwan didn't hug her again. After all, she had a lot of accessories on her body and was very active. She was worried that she would hurt her, so she held Xianjie's little hand and played with it. Previously, when talking about children, she wanted to ask Jingwan about it, but because of Luo Jingying, she changed the topic. Is there really no movement in your belly? Yuan Xiaoqiao stared at Jingwan's belly and said quite bluntly, "You've been whispering sweet nothings to each other for half a year. How come you're not pregnant?" Jingwan rolled her eyes at her. "I'll only be 16 in the second month after the new year. What's the hurry? Besides, now is not the time." Sun Yijia understood immediately. It seemed that some of her guesses were most likely correct. She was now in the Luo family. Grandfather had been teaching her husband and several uncles attentively, and had more or less revealed some things to them. Luo Jinghua basically didn't hide anything from her. According to Sun Yijia's intelligence, she would more or less find some clues. Jingwan's words were basically a kind of affirmation. It was better to be closer to the person who sat on the throne. Jingwan glanced at her, and the two of them smiled tacitly. Yuan Xiaoqiao, however, was still confused. Did she have to deliberately choose the time to give birth to a child? Time passed by just like that. When it was time for lunch, it was lively, but there was no trouble. After lunch, Jingwan threw her husband aside and took an afternoon nap in old Madame Luo's room. After waking up, she spent another 2 hours with old Madame Luo until Li Honyuan couldn't bear it anymore and personally came to old Madame Luo's room to catch her. Jingwan took the initiative to hold his hand in front of the elders and pacified him, so he didn't lose his temper. However, Li Honyuan still said goodbye with a cold face. Old Madame Luo saw this and was quite amused. The rumored dissolute and playboy was actually infatuated. She had to say that it was quite unexpected. "You've been back for so long, it's about time. After all, Wang Ye's identity is different. It's not good to stay for too long. Wan and Wang Ye should go back early. If you really miss them, you can come back in a few days. Now that we've just returned to the capital, there are so many eyes watching us. It's not good to stay for too long," Li Honyuan said patiently. Jingwan glanced at him. He didn't mean what he said. This man clearly wanted her to completely forget about her family and only have him in her heart. "Then we'll go back first. But if there's anything, grandmother must send someone to tell me." "Okay, I know. You're such a worrisome girl. You should worry more about Wang Ye." Li Honyuan nodded. That's right. What she said was really right. The people in the residence gathered together to respectfully send them off. Outside the gate, just as they were about to get into the carriage, Jingwan suddenly turned around. "Mother, Wang Fei, what orders do you have?" Everyone could see that Madame Zhang had something to say to her. On the way out, her eyes were always on Jingwan. Based on how shallow her tears were, it was already not easy for her to not cry until now. "Mother, after a while, the early plum blossoms in Falling Plum House will bloom, right? At that time, can you cut a few for me and send them to the Wangfu? Father won't feel bad, right?" Madame Zhang naturally agreed. Because Luo Rongyan was a man, even if he was her biological father, he didn't have the opportunity to talk to Jingwan. How could he refuse his daughter when she wanted something? Not to mention a few plum blossoms. He couldn't wait to give the entire tree to her. However, Luo Rongyan also knew that his daughter didn't want plum blossoms. What she wanted was affection. There was some estrangement between them and her. Now that Jingwan was willing to mend it, it was naturally good. "When the time comes, Father will personally cut them for you." Jingwan nodded with a smile and said a few words to her brothers and sisters. The three of them were a little excited. After all, Jingwan wasn't close to them. Moreover, her status was high now, so they didn't dare to look for her. After getting into the carriage, Li Honyuan naturally hugged Jingwan in his arms. At first, he was quiet and didn't speak. After about 10 minutes, Li Honyuan softly said, "Father-in-law has the talent to be an official." "HM?" Jingwan was a little confused. "Father-in-law came to talk to me before and asked me some questions. Then I realized that father-in-law is quite keen on official matters. If he is determined to become an official, then he will definitely not be below your grandfather in the future." Jingwan was a little surprised at first, then she became silent. After a moment she said, "Grandmother said that father is actually the most intelligent of the brothers. Father was even prepared to be an official successor that grandfather wanted to cultivate. However, later on, Father was really not interested in official matters. He doesn't like to fight against each other. He doesn't like to deal with those people in the officialdom. He can't be considered a pure scholar. He likes to be romantic and fiddling with gold and stone objects. If he wants to be an official, it will probably be because of me. In Jingwan's eyes, her father was a person who liked romance, pursued casual pursuits, and was indifferent to fame and fortune. It's enough for you to have me. You don't need him to support you. He can continue to be carefree. Jingwan laughed. Father is actually very stubborn in his bones. I heard that when he didn't want to follow grandfather's path, grandfather didn't indulge him in the beginning. The father and son fought for a long time, but grandfather compromised in the end. Although grandfather still cared about the younger generation's own wishes, it is enough to show that father is a person who can't turn back once he has made up his mind. If he has really made up his mind, even if you and I persuade him, it will be useless. In that case, let him be. What he is doing now is not obvious. He will slowly climb up. In the future, there will be a time for him to show his skills. Anyway, as long as he is a talent, it doesn't matter who he uses. This prince's father-in-law will do his best. Naturally, it will be easier to use him. Why not? Therefore, even if it was his father-in-law who dared to steal his wife's attention, he couldn't blame him for being ruthless. Moreover, it was his father-in-law who sent himself to his door. His wife couldn't say that he didn't treat his father-in-law as a person, but as an animal. Along the way, the two of them were whispering sweet nothings into each other's ears when suddenly, a woman's sobbing voice came from outside. It was filled with hidden bitterness and tenderness. Your Highness, come out and see this servant, okay? This servant misses you, really misses you. I beg you, this servant just wants to see you one last time. This way, this servant can die in peace. Your Highness, Jingwan raised her head and looked at Li Hongyuan faintly. The woman outside, is she calling you Your Highness? Li Hongyuan didn't feel guilty at all. Probably. One of the 7 days of favor? Perhaps. Li Hongyuan even leaned back to find a more comfortable position. Then, does Your Highness want to say something? What should I say? Isn't this Wan's matter? This prince doesn't need to remind Wan of this kind of thing again and again. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654058. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 367. Right now, it was a relatively lively road. Since the woman started to block the road, there were many people who stopped in their tracks, with a strange excitement and agitation. After all, as ordinary people, they had a strong curiosity about all kinds of gossip about people of different social classes. This would often become a topic for them to talk about. Perhaps at some point, their saliva would splatter everywhere. But because there were guards opening the way, those people did not dare to get too close. After learning from some insiders that this was Jin Qinhuang's carriage, many people's hearts were filled with fear. It was enough to see that Jin Qinhuang's prestige was very popular among the common people. However, today, Jin Qinhuang Fei was returning to her maternal home. Jin Qinhuang might not be in the carriage, but Jin Qinhuang Fei would definitely be there. Inexplicably, some people became excited again, as if they were injected with chicken blood. What fear was temporarily thrown to the side. There were only 2 words floating in their minds. Big show. It could be said to be calling for thousands of times. Of course, they only dared to say it in their hearts. The curtain of the carriage was finally lifted. These ordinary people had never seen Jin Qinhuang Fei before. But looking at this imposing manner, she should undoubtedly be Jin Qinhuang Fei. Not to mention other things. Just seeing the true face of a Qin Fei was enough to show off for a while. She was beautiful and was different from them. She looked gentle and soft, kind and amiable. This kind woman, as long as it was a man, they would be willing to take good care of her. They only dared to think about it and would never have any blasphemous thoughts. But how would Qin Fei deal with this matter? They were afraid that she would suffer a loss. However, when this Qin Fei opened her mouth, it was completely different from what they had expected. Most people's hearts were only left with astonishment, followed by fear. When Jingwan's voice fell, the people who had a good impression of her immediately changed. Vicious, femme fatale. One may know a person's face, but not their heart, and so on. A dignified Qin Fei unexpectedly did not have the capacity to tolerate people. She was just a woman who had once served Qin. Even if she was not happy and did not want to see her, she could just send her away. But when she opened her mouth, she wanted a life and regarded a life as grass. This kind of person was in a high position, who knew how many people would die in her hands. Qin Fei, woo, Jingwan had spoken. The guards naturally would not be polite. It should be known that these people, other than carrying out orders, did not have a heart of stone. Protective feelings for the fairer sex? What the hell was that? As for the beauties, Jingwan didn't give them a second glance. She still had that faint smile on her face as she glanced around. Just one glance was enough to make everyone shudder out of fear. It was as if they said another word, or even if they had any bad thoughts, she would immediately know. Then, like that woman, they would be fed to the fish in the moat. Jingwan had expected the consequences of doing such a thing in public, but it didn't matter. The man in the carriage had done many things to make her happy. In that case, why couldn't she do something to please him? But speaking of human lives, Jingwan looked back at Eunuch Mu. Her meaning could not be more obvious. In the past, a certain someone didn't know what was going on with those women, but as his number one lackey, he definitely knew about this kind of thing. He even had the account book. Eunuch Mu trembled under Jingwan's gaze. Qin Fei, His Highness, has given this woman to. He quickly recalled in his mind. Who did he give her to? Who did he give her to? It had been a long time, and there were too many things that he had to remember. How could he remember such things? However, since the princess consort had asked, he had to think hard even if he couldn't remember. He had to remember quickly. Although Eunuch Mu remained calm, Jingwan knew that he couldn't remember it. She's not from the villa? Qin Fei, no. Eunuch Mu was very sure about this. In that case, find out who he gave her to. Send her back and tell him that I'm very angry about it. Her seemingly careless tone made Eunuch Mu feel inexplicably terrified. He had an illusion that he was facing the king of hell. Was it true that one was marked by the company one kept? No. Qin Fei was such a kind person. Would she become the same as His Highness in the future? Thinking of that scene, a living king of hell was enough to make people suffer. If there was a king of hell's wife, would they just kill themselves? Because it was too horrible. Mu, and what are you thinking about? Or did you not hear what I said? Do you need me to repeat it? Jingwan said with a smile. Eunuch Mu only felt more chill in his heart. It was even more horrible than His Highness speaking with a cold face. Qin Fei, I heard it clearly. You don't need to repeat it. Very good. Do it quickly. Jingwan stroked her sleeves indifferently, turned around, and entered the carriage. Then she saw the living king of hell, who supported his cheek with one hand and smiled extremely seductively. Jingwan felt helpless and amused. She walked up, leaned over, put her forehead against his, and whispered, Are you satisfied? Li Hongyuan reached out and put his arm around Jingwan's waist. With a little force, he pulled Jingwan into his arms. Wan, what are you saying? If someone wants your husband, shouldn't you get rid of them all under normal circumstances? But at this time, it's not a matter of whether I'm satisfied or not, but whether you're satisfied or not. Wan, you're protecting your own interests. It was not the first time that Jingwan had learned someone's virtue of pretending to be obedient after getting benefits. as long as you're happy. So Wan is not happy? You're the one who should be happier. Yes, I'm very happy. I'm very happy. It was not because she got rid of her rival in love, but because of this man. She put her arm around his neck, and the tip of her nose intimately rubbed against the tip of his nose. Then she kissed his lips without hesitation. The tip of her tongue slid open his lips and knocked open his teeth. After being married for more than half a year, she was often pulled by someone who was good at kissing to practice. Even if Jingwan was not perfect, she was at least 70 or 80%. It was more than enough to take the initiative once in a while. Li Hongyuan narrowed his eyes. Although he did not know what touched his little heart, his wife was so active and enthusiastic. It was a rare benefit. How could he not enjoy it? His eyes were unusually soft. He just catered to Jingwan's movements and did not take back the initiative. However, Jingwan was still a little weak in this aspect. In the end, she was the one who was panting. The corners of her eyes were slightly red. She buried her head on Li Hongyuan's shoulder, relaxed her body softly, and calmed her breathing. Li Hongyuan's desire was obviously aroused by her, but it was not a good time to continue doing anything. Li Hongyuan stroked her back again and again. When Jingwan regained her calmness, she straightened up and looked at Li Hongyuan with a smile. Prince, there are some debts. Shouldn't we settle them? Originally, it was very hurtful to bring up old debts. Even if she was unhappy, there was no way to change the past. So, it was best to let it go. However, if she did not bring it up, the person who was carrying a debt would be unhappy. Fine, she would settle it properly. Once it was settled, it would be clear whether he would be more unhappy or not. At that time, it would be clear at a glance. Then, she would just treat it as a kind of pleasure. Oh, what does Wan want to settle with your husband? Li Hongyuan might have cared about the dark history in the past, thinking that it might not be easy to explain to his wife. But now, TSK, he couldn't be any calmer. It even became an excuse for him to trouble Jingwan. It was clearly his fault, but he was more righteous than anyone else. Come, let's talk about your 7 days of love first. What do you mean, what's the matter? It's just that. It's such a simple thing. Wan is so smart. Do you still need to explain it? Jingwan gritted her teeth. This bastard. Oh, so there's no deeper meaning. So, a Yuan is not an ordinary person who likes the new and hates the old. Wan's words are wrong. Your husband has nothing to do with the phrase, like the new and hate the old. Once I've decided on someone, I'll start to like her from the new time, and then I'll continue to like her, no matter how old she is. And in my eyes, she will always be new and will never fade. Li Hongyuan held Jingwan's face with one hand, and his eyes were unusually gentle. I like the new and hate the old, because no matter if it's new or old, it can't arouse your husband's attention at all. Jingwan was almost charmed again. Bringing up old debts could make him express his loyalty in disguise. It was really enough. Oxhead despised her. Then she looked at Li Hongyuan. This bastard was actually laughing. He was clearly laughing at her weak willpower and being so easily charmed by men. Jingwan opened her mouth and took a hard bite. Hiss. Li Hongyuan seemed to suck in a breath of cold air and looked very painful. Jingwan really thought that she didn't have a sense of propriety. She quickly reached out to rub it. Pure concern made her confused. She didn't think that it wasn't the first time that she had bitten him until he bled. For example, it happened last night. In fact, it just made a beast more beastly. Could it be more serious than that? Li Hongyuan held her hand. Wan, don't rub it. He seemed to groan in pain. It's so serious. It's obviously, well, it's very serious, very serious. Li Hongyuan's eyes became more and more serene. Jingwan realized in hindsight. Her face turned red and black. Without saying anything, she continued to bite him to death. Good darling, don't bite. It's really serious. It's so serious that you can't get out of the carriage for at least 4 hours. Li Hongyuan grabbed her waist and pressed her close to him. Look at it yourself. What have you become? Good darling, you have to know that one look from you can make it react. You deliberately seduced it and didn't appease it. Aren't you trying to take your husband's life? How can this situation not be serious? If Wan Wan moves again, your husband will think that Wan Wan is going to appease it in the carriage. Jing Wan really gritted her teeth. But when she felt the obvious hardness and faint heat, she didn't dare to move again. Although Li Hongyuan's body was a little uncomfortable, he was in a good mood. He kissed Jing Wan, who was lying in his arms but was unusually obedient. Are you done with the accounts? If not, then continue. Jing Wan coldly sneered. The key is not whether you care or not. The key is that the things you don't care about actually existed. Oh, this is indeed a problem. But it's already an unchangeable fact. What should we do? In addition to the ones raised in the courtyard, there are also some that were given away. In any case, they are all unwanted. If others like them, they can save some rations. Li Hongyuan's tone was as if he wasn't talking about people or even objects. Therefore, it was good to appear in the life of the living king of hell and be chosen by him. Even if it was just a little, in any sense, it could be considered lucky. As for the rest, it was fine if they didn't have feelings for him. But if they did, then it was destined to be the greatest tragedy. Jing Wan thought that she was the luckiest one out of all of them. She got his attention, got his feelings, and got his everything. However, in Li Hongyuan's heart, the luckiest one was herself. It was she who let him know that in addition to benefits, schemes, and harm, there was also warmth and selflessness. There were also things that made people sentimental. These things gave him a new lease of life. It even gave him a second chance in life, prevented the tragedy, and had no regrets. Ah Yuan, your possessiveness is so strong. How can you tolerate your beauties under other people's bodies? Li Hongyuan abruptly lowered his head and pinched Jing Wan's chin, forcing her to raise her head. His eyes became unusually dangerous. Wan Wan, do you think that in this world, as long as a woman has a bit of beauty, no matter what background or status, they can touch Ben Wang's body? Is it not so? Jing Wan knew that he was angry, but she continued to stroke the tiger's whiskers, innocently blinking her eyes. According to the rumors, as long as it's a beauty, no matter if it's a good background or a lowly one, no matter if it's a pure body or a mortal body, sisters are too common, mother and daughter are the real beauties. Even if Jin Qin Wang destroys a family, he still wants to get his hands on them. Li Hongyuan approached her, his warm breath brushing against her face. He gently sniffed, like the top predator, confirming the delicious food and thinking about where to start. Jing Wan really had a feeling of being completely suppressed, unable to move. Then, Wan Wan, do you think they're worthy? Worthy? His voice was soft and low, as if it was the most sincere words of love. Jing Wan couldn't stop goosebumps from rising all over her body. She didn't know if it was because of fear or because of some kind of tremor, but her head involuntarily moved back, as if she couldn't bear it, and moved her body. Unfortunately, she couldn't escape the absolute control of the King of Hell. Wan Wan hasn't answered me yet. Are they worthy? N? What was called second sickness, this was it. It was clearly his own glorious deeds, and it was also his own agreement to settle accounts. Now, he didn't allow others to say it, saying it would step on the reverse scale? Jing Wan chuckled and reached out to hook his neck. Of course, they're not worthy. In this world, other than me, who else can touch your body? You're mine, and you can only be mine. Whoever dares to move, whoever dares to come close, I'll take their life. As she said this, she suddenly pushed Li Hongyuan back, lifted her leg, and straddled his waist, pressing him down on the couch. Her hands were on his collar, and she slowly pulled it to both sides. She leaned over and kissed him on the lips, following the corner of his mouth, along his cheek, all the way to the side of his neck. Mine, his mental illness had acted up, and she couldn't escape no matter what. Since that was the case, she might as well do it herself. Anyway, Jing Wan was also inexplicably moved. However, this smoothing action was too smooth. And it was already full of skill points. This was like the reversal of roles, and this perverted lunatic only felt abnormally happy. It was as if every pore on his body was relaxed, and his entire body was moaning inside and out. He liked to control everything about Jingwan, and vice versa. He also liked to be controlled by his true love. The most intimate contact was not only pleasurable to the body, but also to the soul. And the final result was that Jingwan delivered herself to him and was eaten clean by him. She didn't have much time to take the initiative. It wasn't that a certain someone didn't want to cooperate, but that he didn't have the ability to do so. To extreme pleasure in a short period of time. This had never happened before. Li Hongyuan was also worried that Jingwan wouldn't be able to take it, so he restrained himself. Usually he wouldn't go overboard, and if he did, he would at least rest for a few days. This time, he really went overboard. When Jingwan was carried down from the carriage by Li Hongyuan, the carriage had already stopped in the prince's mansion. It was very close to the main courtyard, and the horses had all been unloaded. The surroundings were also very quiet, and almost no sound could be heard. The sunset in the sky was almost dim. Jingwan was wrapped tightly in a blanket by Li Hongyuan, but his clothes were very casual. The chest area was wide open, and the marks on it were abnormally obvious. Casual, decadent, and satisfied, coupled with that incomparably handsome face, it was even more seductive than usual. Even the group of servant girls, who didn't have any thoughts about him, couldn't help but blush, and their hearts beat faster. They all lowered their heads, not daring to look at him. Not to mention them, even the bodyguards, even the shadow guards who could be said to have severed all 7 emotions and 6 desires, seemed to be affected by the atmosphere, and were somewhat restless. Jingwan's mind was blank. Someone seemed to have not recovered from his illness yesterday, and today he came again. It seemed that his illness was getting worse and worse. Speaking of which, it was not her who made the debts, but she had lost so much. How miserable it was if she hadn't settled the accounts. Jingwan's last thought was that anyway, it was better to settle the accounts as soon as possible. As for some other things that she still wanted to ask, such as about Ruan Fangfei, she had long forgotten them. The next day, Jingwan seemed to be in good spirits, but she didn't do morning exercises, which was enough to prove that she was still a little weak. After tidying up, she went to Great Elder Princess's mansion in a mighty manner. Because of her identity, she didn't wear formal clothes, but used the prince's ceremonial guard. Great Elder Princess accepted the large number of gifts from Jingwan calmly. After all, these things were nothing to her. Great Elder Princess looked at her adopted daughter, who had grown taller and more beautiful. What's more, because she was married, she had a charm that girls didn't have. She was elegant, dignified, generous, and calm. Although not every man would like this type of woman, once he liked her, it would be difficult for him to let her go. No wonder Li Hongyuan, a playboy, could be attracted to her. But at this moment, Great Elder Princess's eyes were a little strange. "Foster mother, why are you looking at me like this? Is there something on my face?" Jingwan touched her face in confusion. Great Elder Princess smiled and said, "I heard that you sent a person to Great Elder Princess's mansion yesterday." Jingwan instantly understood what was going on. "So, that maidservant is Great Elder Princess's maid? If so, maybe I should go and have tea with Great Elder Princess." Great Elder Princess was naturally Lu Qingdi's eldest daughter, who was 2 or 3 years older than Li Hongyuan. However, because her biological mother was just a palace maid, she didn't have a high status even though she gave birth to Great Elder Princess. Her husband was also the son of an aristocratic family, but he was the kind of favored son. He was a playboy. Although he was nearly 30 years old, he didn't have a fixed character. He liked to play with cats and dogs and was lustful. Yesterday, he directly asked Li Hongyuan for the maidservant. Because the eldest princess was not favored, no one supported her. Not to mention controlling the prince consort. She was actually a punching bag. Her prince consort often said that it was because of her that his future was ruined, so it was natural that he treated her badly. In fact, he was just mud that couldn't be supported. Because he had a princess wife, he blamed everything on the eldest princess, giving him a perfect excuse to lead a drunken life. However, his family members still believed that it was true. He used Great Elder Princess's money to go to brothels and hire actresses. He used Great Elder Princess's house to raise concubines and concubines' children. Great Elder Princess emptied her private property for him, but he didn't get anything good. Jingwan knew these things before she married Li Hongyuan. She naturally hated that kind of man very much. She was also angry at Great Elder Princess. After all, Great Elder Princess was a princess. Not to mention her biological mother. Half of her blood was His Majesty's blood. If she made a scene, His Majesty would not ignore it for the sake of his face. In the final analysis, she was too soft-hearted. She had someone to rely on, but she was bullied by others. However, although Great Elder Princess was her husband's sister, they were not close to each other at all. If there were no acquaintances present, Li Hongyuan might not know who Great Elder Princess was. In this case, no one would meddle in other people's business. However, maybe she could take this opportunity to teach Great Elder Princess's husband a lesson. She just couldn't stand it. Great Elder Princess was speechless. Her daughter's idea was too unusual. It had been such a short time, but she had already caused a stir in the city. She still wanted to have tea with Great Elder Princess? Do you know what kind of rumors have spread about you? Jingwan smiled indifferently. She is just a jealous woman with a vicious heart. To be more serious, she doesn't deserve to be a royal wife. Before I left the capital for Jiangnan, there were already such signs. Isn't it enough? People say that you are clever, but I think you are heartless. Great Elder Princess was a little exasperated. Besides, since you know the consequences, why did you do it? You are just AB*TCH. There are many ways to deal with you. Why did you do it in public? You even said that you would throw away the moat. Aren't you deliberately exposing yourself to gossip? How could you do such a stupid thing? Foster mother, don't worry. It doesn't matter. No matter what others say, as long as Prince doesn't say anything, no one can do anything to me. After all, even if it was the emperor, it seems that he wouldn't dare to gamble on whether or not he could find a daughter-in-law who matches Jin Qinhuang's 8 characters. Besides, our Wang Ye is just an idle person, so what if his Wang Fei's moral character is lacking? Jingwan really didn't care about reputation. With her husband's support, she didn't have to worry about the emperor at all. As for why I did it, foster mother, I was forced to do it. Do you believe it? She showed a little grievance. Great Elder Princess didn't even care about her manners and directly rolled her eyes at her. It showed what Great Elder Princess was thinking. Jingwan sighed in her heart. It was obvious that she was telling the truth, but why didn't anyone believe her? If she hadn't been forced, she wouldn't have taken Prince Jin's life in that case without caring about reputation. All right, I can't be bothered to explain it to you. It's fine as long as you know what you're doing. However, allow me to remind you that you shouldn't go overboard. Han Yuan hasn't said anything yet, and that's because he still treats you well. However, if he were to change his mind in the future, everything that you've done today would be a huge mistake. By then, you'll be the one to suffer. Thank you, foster mother. I know. Don't go too far. The worst was still to come. Jingwan wiped her tears for herself. Jingwan couldn't be 100% sure that Li Hongyuan wouldn't change his mind, but it was really unnecessary to worry about it in the future. It was purely asking for trouble. She just needed to believe in him, now. In addition, this matter spread too quickly. If no one added fuel to the fire, it wouldn't be like this. I even suspect that there was someone deliberately plotting this. Otherwise, it's one thing for a lowly servant to be shameless, but how could she have the guts to do such a thing that would make her master lose face? That person might be dead by now. What Great Elder Princess thought of, Jingwan naturally also thought of. Foster mother, you probably have heard about what happened in Jiangnan. I amassed a lot of money in Jiangnan. I just don't know whether they came for Prince Jin and happened to come for me, or they came for me in the first place. You amassed a lot of money because of His Majesty? Great Elder Princess thought that she knew Jingwan to some extent. And according to the financial resources of Prince Jin's mansion, it was really unnecessary. You are wise, foster mother. Jingwan admitted generously. Then it's okay. Because of His Majesty, you are stigmatized. Based on my understanding of His Majesty, if someone dares to do anything to you at this time, He will definitely protect you. Yes. It's more troublesome if the King of Hell finds fault with me. After all, whether it's me or Prince Jean, he will lose face. Prince Jean is not a person who will suffer losses. I've worried for nothing. Thinking of Li Hongyuan's temper and virtue, Great Elder Princess couldn't help having a headache. It was good enough that he didn't make trouble for others. Those who rushed to make trouble for him were either out of their minds or out of their minds. Then they talked about the scenery in Jiangnan as usual. Speaking of which, Great Elder Princess had also been to Jiangnan. At this time, she was more nostalgic about it. Sister Wan, you are finally back? Hearing the voice before seeing the person, it was none other than old Mistress Yu Yao. It seems that Yu Yao came back earlier than expected. When Jingwan entered Great Elder Princess's mansion, she heard from Great Elder Princess that Yu Yao went back to the main residence of the Jiang family with her brother and happened to come back today. It was either noon or the next day. What a coincidence. Hearing this, Great Elder Princess also smiled. She didn't want to say anything about the daughter of her superior who had been led astray. Her son didn't become an official, so she didn't want to say anything. Only this young daughter seemed to be good in all aspects now, which was a great comfort. Yu Yao rushed in hurriedly. When she saw her mother, she realized that she had forgotten herself. She stood properly and said, "Mother, pay my respects to you." "Mother, I'm back." Great Elder Princess nodded and didn't get angry. Old Mistress Yu Yao looked relieved and secretly stuck out her little tongue. She thought that others didn't see it, but in fact, Great Elder Princess and Jingwan saw it clearly. Both of them burst into laughter. Yu Yao turned to Jingwan and said, "Sister Wan, I miss you so much. You have been in Jiangnan for so long." Jingwan held Yu Yao in her arms and said, "I also miss Yu Yao. Our Yu Yao has grown taller and is about to become a big girl." "Isn't she about to become a big girl? I already look like a big girl." Yu Yao stuck out her small chest and said, "Yes, yes, yes." Then some people came in. Obviously, they were Yu Yao's companions. There were 2 couples and their children, 4 adults and 3 children. Compared with Yu Yao, these people were much more well-behaved. The 2 men were graceful and well-behaved, while the 2 young women were a little reserved. It was okay in ordinary families, but in Great Elder Princess's mansion, they seemed to be a little unpresentable. However, Jingwan also saw that because Great Elder Princess didn't like them, they were a little afraid of Great Elder Princess. Naturally, Great Elder Princess was more unhappy. It was simply a vicious circle. And the children seemed to be a little bit like their mother. Jingwan's status was obvious, so they saluted her again. Jingwan nodded and asked them to be excused. Prince Jean is also in the mansion. Your father is accompanying him to the outer study. You 2 brothers can go and have a look. Yes, mother. We'll take our leave. The 2 brothers left one after another. Without the backbone, Jingwan felt that the remaining people were a little pitiful. In fact, Great Elder Princess was not a fierce person. Did she have to be like this? Great Elder Princess frowned again, but she didn't lose her temper in the end. Princess Jean brought back a lot of good things from the south of the Yangtze River for me. There are a lot of things. You can take some back by yourselves. Yes, thank you, mother. Great Elder Princess waved her hand and sent them away impatiently. After they left, she sighed to Jingwan. I don't know whether it's right or wrong to choose such a daughter-in-law. In order to reassure the emperor, Great Elder Princess chose daughters-in-law from small families, who were naturally not presentable in her eyes. Jingwan didn't answer. Everything was like drinking water. Only people knew whether it was hot or cold. As the saying went, if you were willing to give up, you would get something. However, obviously, Great Elder Princess didn't want to get an answer from Jingwan. Sister, did you bring me a gift? Yu Yao shook Jingwan's hand and asked coquettishly. How can I not bring you a gift? You are becoming more and more unruly. Great Elder Princess scolded softly. Yu Yao knew that her mother wasn't really angry, so she wasn't afraid at all. What did you give me? Mother, can I go and have a look now? Go, go. You are making my head ache here. Great Elder Princess said with disdain. Yu Yao walked away with a smile and ran away as soon as she was out of her mother's sight. They are all debt collectors. Great Elder Princess rubbed her temples, but there was a smile at the corner of her mouth. Children are not all debt collectors of their parents. Generation after generation, they first collect debts from their parents, and then their children collect debts from them. No one can escape from it. Yes. Jingwan, what about you? Is there any good news in your belly? Great Elder Princess's eyes naturally fell on Jingwan's belly. Under such circumstances, unless one was like Sun Ijia, who got pregnant after getting married, they would definitely be urged to get pregnant. No one could escape. It's fate to have a child. Let nature take its course. Of course, she couldn't tell Great Elder Princess the truth. Later, Great Elder Princess wanted to ask her to stay for dinner, but the Imperial Palace suddenly summoned Li Hongyuan. Before Li Hongyuan left, he sent someone to ask Jingwan. Jingwan directly got up and left. Great Elder Princess didn't ask her to stay. Even if Li Hongyuan was an idle prince, Great Elder Princess wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the imperial court. After all, it was a special period. White could be smeared black, so it was better to be careful. At the gate of Great Elder Princess's mansion, Jingwan and Li Hongyuan parted ways. One went to the imperial palace, while the other went back to the prince's mansion. Li Hongyuan left most of the guards of honor to Jingwan, and he went directly on his horse. In Jingwan's opinion, it was mostly about the matter in Jiangnan. As long as the final result was not out, Prince Jin, as an imperial envoy, was the kind of imperial envoy who left other officials aside. It was impossible for him to refuse to do it. Although he could disobey Emperor Lucheng, there should be a limit. It would be bad if Emperor Lucheng issued an imperial edict to invite him. Jingwan sat in the carriage, slightly closed her eyes, and fiddled with the Buddha beads on her left wrist with her right hand, thinking about something. There were some things that Li Hongyuan didn't say clearly, but Jingwan could feel the tension from some of the letters. Even if she knew that Li Hongyuan had great power and it was not easy for him to get the throne, she still couldn't help worrying about him as long as the dust didn't settle. She couldn't do anything for him, and she couldn't drag him down. There was the sound of hurried horse hooves, followed by the neighing of the horse, and the carriage suddenly shook. Because of inertia, Jingwan directly hit the wall of the carriage, and it soon came to a complete stop. Jingwan rubbed her aching arm. What happened? Someone rode a horse and hit the carriage, disturbing Wang Fei, asking Wang Fei for forgiveness. An Yi's voice came from outside the window. Jingwan's brows slightly moved. Daring to ride a horse in the capital, Jingwan had to say, good guts. But daring to hit the guard of honor of the living king of hell, that was equivalent to eating 100 bears' heart and leopard's guts. Ask clearly who it is. If it's an emergency, let the other party take the responsibility of riding a horse and receive the punishment himself. If it's deliberately riding a horse, take the person and hand it over to the governor's office to deal with according to the law. Obviously, no matter what the situation was, Jingwan didn't intend to pursue the matter when she was hit. Jingwan didn't pursue the matter, but an Yi and the others didn't necessarily not pursue the matter. Offending Wang Fei wasn't a small matter, so how could they not pursue the matter? Later, when their master pursued the matter, they would all be punished. It was originally fine, but disaster simply fell from the sky. However, right now, whatever Wang Fei said was what it was. Was this obeying on the surface, but opposing on the inside? Absolutely not. Jingwan prepared to continue to close her eyes and rest. But outside, do you know who this young master is? Jingwan sighed in her heart. With this standard tone of a hedonistic little tyrant, she knew that this matter couldn't be settled peacefully. He had to use his power to bully people. However, it was clear that the other party didn't live in the capital, but they definitely had power and influence. Otherwise, how could they dare to be arrogant in front of the living king of hell? Leaving it for consideration, Jingwan was 80 to 90% sure of the other party's identity. Leaning over, she slightly lifted the curtain of the window and looked outside. There were 7 or 8 strong guards with a deep murderous aura. At a glance, one could tell that they were soldiers who had experienced hundreds of battles. This kind of person should be respected for protecting the country, but now they were being driven by the little tyrant. Moreover, for her husband's face, she couldn't back down. Jingwan put down the curtain and sat quietly, letting an E and the others deal with it. As expected, a conflict immediately broke out between the two sides. At this time, Mama Gong also lifted the curtain and came in. Firstly, she was worried that the horses outside would be startled again. Secondly, Mama Gong heard the noise just now and was 100% sure that Jingwan had been hit. She was worried and wanted to take a look. Jingwan wasn't surprised. Mama Gong had always been careful and didn't hide anything. She directly rolled up her sleeves. No one thought that an accident would happen. Because she was caught off guard, the hit wasn't light and a large bruise appeared on her arm. Mama Gong frowned and took out medicine from a hidden box in the carriage. She applied it on Jingwan's arm and rubbed it. This pain wasn't unbearable. Your Highness, you should already know the other party's identity, right? Mama Gong asked softly. Yes. The He family has been guarding the Northeast since 50 years ago. Now, it's the 3rd generation. They have 100,000 soldiers and are known as the Northeast Army. They are like the stabilizing force of Qi Yuan in the Northeast. Unlike other generals, the He family lives in the Northeast border town and returns to the capital every 3 years to report on their work. As far as I know, in the past years, it was the commander-in-chief who came back with about 100 people. This year, it seems that even his family members have come back. Was there something unknown about this? No matter who it is, His Highness won't let them go if they hurt Her Highness. Jingwan was silent. This was an obvious thing. If it was really an accident, she would say a few words to persuade him. But obviously it wasn't. This little tyrant was used to being arrogant. In the Northeast border town, his family was the boss, equivalent to the local tyrant. Naturally, no one dared to do anything to him. Even in the capital, he had the capital to be arrogant. However, he was no longer at the top of the pyramid. If he ran into the hands of the king of hell, it was like running into an iron plate. Even if he didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. Logically speaking, the other party was a real fierce army. The guards of the prince's residence were carefully selected, so they couldn't be compared. And E and the others couldn't show their full strength in order to avoid being exposed. However, who told Jingwan to have more people on her side? Moreover, during the training, several people worked together. It took a long time, but the final result didn't change. That little tyrant still wanted to clamor, but his mouth was blocked. Your Highness, how should we deal with these people? And he didn't directly send them to the capital government, but asked again. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/665465. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 368. Bring him back to the Wangfu. When Wang Ye returns, let General Yi come to the Wangfu to pick them up. Some people were not taught a profound lesson and would never know their mistakes. Yes. And Yi answered and waved his hand. The Wangfu's bodyguards stepped forward, 1 person each, with a knife on their neck. They could either walk on their own or directly knock them out and take them away. Moreover, it was very clear that if they were knocked out, the integrity of their bodies would not be guaranteed. As for that little overlord, an E personally took care of him. Following that, the road was more spectacular, but most people's reaction was, Which family didn't have eyes to provoke Jin Wanya? This was an old man wanting to hang himself, disliking that his life was too long. Since Jingwan said to hand it over to Li Hongyuan to handle, naturally, she wouldn't go see that little overlord. She only instructed an E and the others to watch over them and not touch them for the time being. When Li Hongyuan returned from the palace, it was already afternoon, but Jingwan had just finished her lunch. Li Hongyuan was chased and intercepted by a group of old men in the palace, wanting to know more about Jiangnan. Li Hongyuan was annoyed by them, and his mood naturally became unhappy. In the end, he was completely impatient. Yu Zhongqing basically knew everything, and the matter of going out to investigate and arrest was Li Suyan's responsibility. Don't look for him again. Even if he asked again, he wouldn't say a word. It was not good for him to make a move on this group of old men, but in their family, there were some who could take a beating. With such a blatant threat, this group of old officials could only pinch their noses and not utter a word. After the wrangling, it was almost time for lunch. Lu Qingdi let Li Hongyuan accompany him to eat. Then, Lu Qingdi mentioned the matter of Gui Fei Su to Li Hongyuan. Imperial concubine, Su naturally didn't dare to tell Lu Qingdi the real reason for the estrangement between mother and son. She only said that there was some misunderstanding between them. Yuan thought that she cared more about her son, so he got angry and refused to talk to her. Imperial concubine Su was very haggard these 2 days, and her eyes were also red. It seemed that she had cried a lot. Lu Qingdi didn't think about what happened in Jiangnan because Yu Zhongqing was there. Yu Zhongqing was his confidant. If Li Hongyuan hid something from Li Hongming, as long as he compared it with Yu Zhongqing, it would be clear. In fact, Yu Zhongqing's situation was the same as that of Li Hongyuan's Chungbing, so Lu Qingdi easily believed Imperial Consort Su's words. Lu Qingdi didn't know that Yu Zhongqing and Chungbing's things were all prepared by him beforehand. Therefore, from the beginning, Li Hongyuan had concealed part of Li Hongming's information. He was also certain that as long as he gave Imperial concubine Su a chance, she would open her mouth to plead for leniency. Everything was within his expectations. He had the advantage of time and place. When it came to implementation, people were also on his side. Lu Qingdi wanted to be the peacemaker and let the misunderstanding between mother and son be resolved. Naturally, it would be good for you, good for me, and good for everyone. She even painstakingly advised him. For so many years, his imperial concubine mother was clearly impartial. Sometimes, she even doted on him a little. What did she say about being a biological son? Wasn't that purely hurting his imperial concubine mother's heart? Li Hongyuan's expression became colder and colder. It seemed that he was going to contradict Lu Qingdi again, but for some reason, he finally endured it. Finally, Imperial father, please tell my imperial concubine mother to take good care of her health. Son will pay her respects in a few days. Since you still care about your imperial concubine mother's health, why don't you go now? Once she sees you, the misunderstanding will be resolved, and she will naturally be fine. It would have been better if he didn't say it. As soon as he said it, Li Hongyuan's eyes even appeared ruthless. I won't go. Lu Qingdi naturally wasn't afraid of Li Hongyuan. On the contrary, he was a little surprised and curious at this moment. Although on the surface, there wasn't any difference when he contradicted him in the past, he felt that he was as stubborn as a calf. This was really something new to this son. So was he really angry? You must go. This is an imperial edict. Li Hongyuan's face was gloomy as he stared at Lu Qingdi. Then, he picked up his chopsticks and got up to leave. There were dozens of imperial dishes on the table, but he didn't eat much. Imperial concubine Su didn't eat anything and was resting on the couch with her eyes closed. When she heard that Li Hongyuan had come, she quickly got up with a face full of joy. When Li Hongyuan entered and was about to greet him, Imperial concubine Su had already walked up to him and grabbed his arm. Yuan, there's no need to be so polite. Yuan, are you still angry with Imperial concubine mother? She was very careful, and her grip was quite strong, as if she was afraid that Li Hongyuan would turn around and leave. Li Hongyuan tried to pull his arm away, but failed. He glanced at her hand. It was well maintained, and her nails were a little long. If he really used force, her nails might break. Imperial concubine Su saw this, and was happy in her heart. Her son really did care about her. You were eating with your imperial father. Why did you come over now? You must not have eaten anything. I'll have the small kitchen prepare some food. You're a big man, so it's impossible for you not to eat. Servants. Imperial mother, there's no need. How can you not eat? As the saying goes, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I have no appetite. Li Hongyuan interrupted her, appearing rather impolite. Then he saw Imperial concubine Su's somewhat startled expression, and a trace of annoyance flashed across his face. He blamed himself, but refused to apologize in a fit of pique. Imperial concubine Su laughed. If there's no need, then there's no need. You're a big man. It's fine to eat 1 or 2 meals. Li Hongyuan looked away. Imperial mother, if you have something to say, just say it. This son still has something to do. What could Li Hongyuan have to do? In Imperial concubine Su's eyes, he was still angry. Then sit down and talk. There's no need. Thinking about it, some things can be solved with just a few words. Imperial concubine Su was helpless. Some things couldn't be explained clearly and would only make things worse. After some consideration, she mentioned Yu Zhongqing and Lu Chengdi without the slightest doubt. Yuan you've already made arrangements? Imperial concubine Su faintly revealed some disbelief. Li Hongyuan looked at her and then reached out. He firmly, but subconsciously cautiously brushed Imperial concubine Su's hand away. His face was cold and hard. Imperial mother, you didn't think this son would do these things from the beginning, right? I don't get along with Li Hongming, and I don't get along with all my brothers. However, Li Hongming is your son. If his situation is too bad, you will definitely be worried, and you won't be able to sleep at night. After all, this isn't like those small fights in the past. Then, do you want me to just watch and do nothing? This son erased some things when I was in Jiangnan. Or do you think that with Yu Zhongqing by your side at all times, everything is transparent in his eyes? Am I that incompetent? Imperial concubine Su definitely didn't expect this layer of relationship. However, after thinking about it for a moment, she should know that it wasn't impossible. It was inevitable. Yuan had always been a filial child, but she had completely neglected him. To a certain extent, wasn't it also a kind of denial to him? No wonder he was so angry. Imperial concubine Su's heart was stifled, and she could only shake her head to deny it. No. However, there were more things that she couldn't say. Yuan, why didn't you tell Imperial Mother earlier? Tell you? Why should I tell you earlier? Li Hongyuan's coldness seemed to contain a trace of stubbornness. If I told you, would you hide it from him? Then let Li Hongming be grateful to this son? There's no need. This son didn't do it for him. Then, would you also thank this son for him? Imperial concubine Su seemed to understand this time. They had been at odds since they were young. Now that he suddenly did something for the other party, no matter what the consideration was, the other party would express gratitude. Then, the way they got along in the past would be broken. In this way, perhaps both parties would feel uncomfortable and simply say nothing. Anyway, as Yuan said, he didn't do it for Ming. In the end, it was because he felt uncomfortable in his heart. She understood, but she couldn't say it out loud. Especially the last sentence, because he was really right. In this, it seemed that he didn't consider her feelings. As a mother, she didn't think much of it, but the truth was that as a mother, she thanked her adopted son for her son. Yuan thought of everything and didn't want to see such a scene, so he chose not to say anything. In the end, she was the one who opened her mouth to plead first, creating a gap between mother and son. When she pleaded for mercy, the pain in her son's heart was probably countless times worse than expected. Imperial concubine Su's body and lips trembled, but she couldn't say anything. Because no matter what, she had already done the wrong thing, and Yuan heart was already hurt. If she said too much, it might cause him to rebel in his heart and think that she was really biased. Li Hongyuan lowered his head. Mother, this son won't be entering the palace to pay respects for a while. This son needs to calm down. Please forgive this son. This son will take his leave. Imperial concubine Su could only watch Li Hongyuan's back as he left, seemingly lonely and sad. She wanted to dissolve the estrangement, but failed. Instead, the estrangement deepened. Imperial concubine Su hadn't eaten or slept well in the past 2 or 3 days. At this moment, she felt her blood rush up and her head spin. Her body went limp, and she fell to the ground. Imperial concubine. Her trusted maid hurried forward. Someone quickly call the imperial physician. What imperial physician? Don't call him. Help this concubine up. I'll be fine after lying on the bed for a while. If she fell ill when her son came, wouldn't her son be accused of being unfilial? Although her son's reputation wasn't good, he shouldn't be accused of being unfilial, especially since she was the one who brought it upon him. The maid didn't dare to disobey her and hurriedly helped her up. Imperial concubine, how about this servant go and ask the prince to come back? You're not allowed to go. He's already sad. Seeing this concubine like this, he should blame himself and feel guilty. This concubine was originally in the wrong this time. Provincial governor, don't make it public. When the imperial physician checks my pulse in 2 days, just have him secretly prescribe some medicine. Imperial concubine Su rubbed her temples, revealing her weakness and exhaustion. Imperial concubine Su was both physically and mentally exhausted. It wasn't only because of Li Hongyuan's matter, but also because Jingwan's disheveled appearance the day before yesterday, as well as her capable aunt being beaten to death. The imperial concubines who came to her palace to comfort her came in droves. Some praised her openly, while others sneered and ridiculed her. Of course, none of them really dared to point their fingers at her face. In reality, this wasn't a big deal to her. If she couldn't even endure this, how could she have a foothold in the harem? Imperial concubine Su refused to call for an imperial physician, so she could only deal with the health pills she usually ate. After leaving the Jade Essence Palace, he actually heard the slight chaos. But what did that have to do with him? He looked back, then brushed the place where imperial concubine Su had grabbed, as if brushing away something dirty. Then he directly left the palace. On the way back to the main courtyard, Li Hongyuan already knew that Jingwan had been bumped into. Not only had the horse been startled, the carriage had almost flipped over. Although the guards outside reacted quickly and managed to control the carriage, Jingwan had still been injured. In the blink of an eye, Li Hongyuan's body was shrouded in hostility. Go and receive your punishment. 50 lashes each. Yes. An E replied. He didn't dare and wouldn't have any meaning. Has the He family's people already arrived at the residence? Yes, but Wang Fei said to wait for Wang Ye to come back to deal with it. So she didn't let the He family's people in. Although the He family's people temporarily left, they should have left people near the residence. Seeing that master has returned, they should come again soon. When this prince entered the palace, I met with General He. Go break his arms and legs. If the He family's people come again, block them for this prince. Yes. Jingwan was a little surprised to see Li Hongyuan at this time. Because she was alone, she ate relatively quickly. The people in the palace should still be eating at this time. Jingwan didn't think too much about it. She just ordered the servants to prepare some food. It didn't need to be too sumptuous, but it had to be fast. Li Hongyuan didn't have an appetite and didn't want to eat. I'm sorry, but I'm really hungry now. While waiting for the food, Li Hongyuan hugged Jingwan and kissed her. Jingwan didn't push him away. After being married for more than half a year, she guessed that this man was not only crazy, but also had skin thirst. The longer they were separated, the more clingy he became. However, this kind of situation only happened to her. Moreover, this man really was a bit of a neat freak, because he wanted to settle accounts with her. In order to settle accounts as soon as possible, Jingwan did some research on his past. The best person to find out was naturally Eunuch Mu. Therefore, when Eunuch Mu came back to report the news, Jingwan asked him. In order to create a strong and loyal image for the male master in front of the female master, Eunuch Mu naturally told her everything he knew. Li Hongyuan didn't like being served. He basically did the daily bathing and dressing himself. Occasionally, he would ask someone to wipe his back. The only thing he needed others to take care of was his hair. From a long time ago, it was Eunuch Mu who did this. The palace maids and maids couldn't get close to him at all. Every time Eunuch Mu did it, he had to wash himself clean first. If he was dissatisfied with anything, he would be in trouble. It was true that Li Hongyuan doted on them for 7 days. And it was also true that many women loved Li Hongyuan so much that they fell deeply in love with him. However, Wang Yi did not even touch a single one of them. Those who lasted for 7 days were all relatively special women. They were basically acting in concert with Li Hongyuan to make outsiders believe that Li Hongyuan was indeed lustful. At the same time, it also balanced the women who stayed by Li Hongyuan's side for 1 or 2 days, so that no one would suspect that Li Hongyuan did not touch any of them. According to Eunuch Mu, the prince disliked those women because they were dirty. When they were close to him, their breaths were dirty. After knowing this, Jingwan touched her chin. She really couldn't believe it. Her husband's virginity might have been ended by her. Although she didn't directly ask Eunuch Mu such a question, Jingwan could almost come to this conclusion. Eunuch Mu was 7 or 8 years older than Li Hongyuan. He had been with Li Hongyuan since he was 5 or 6 years old. No one knew more about Li Hongyuan's private affairs than he did. It was no wonder that Jingwan was so surprised. Putting aside Li Hongyuan's skill in flirting and the way he did it in bed at the beginning, he was clearly a master among masters. He didn't seem like someone who had never tasted the taste of sex before. However, from Mu An's point of view, it seemed that he didn't need to tell such a lie. After all, no matter how dissolute and absurd a man was before marriage, as long as he didn't have anyone except his wife by his side after marriage, he could be regarded as a first-class man in a woman's eyes. Except for her, no one would feel a little uncomfortable. Before the princess got married, she would specially send a maid to test the marriage. Eunuch Mu must have the same idea. There was no need to make up a lie that Li Hongyuan had never touched a woman. So, someone was just gifted? He was so fierce and energetic in bed. In fact, it was because he had been accumulating it for a long time. Jingwan patted her head. She didn't pay attention to it and got it dirty. However, Jingwan was really happy about this. She didn't even notice that the little discomfort buried deep in her heart had disappeared without a trace. Therefore, when Li Hongyuan was intimate with her at this moment, she just let him be. Even when the maid came in and out, she didn't push him away. Li Hongyuan's eyes flashed slightly. What he once understood was from the words of the shadow guards, and what he knew was from her appearance. Now, he understood her heart more and more. Now, he was almost certain that something must have happened during the time he was not around. It was obviously a good thing for him. After that, during the meal, Jingwan kept putting food into his bowl with a smile. Sometimes, she even fed him directly. Li Hongyuan directly held her in his arms. Jingwan didn't object and fed him naturally. Li Hongyuan thought that she would be willing to feed him mouth to mouth. He glanced at the maid, who lowered her head and wished she could shrink her head into her stomach. Li Hongyuan didn't do that in the end. Perhaps from now on, he didn't need to deliberately train her. Wan's awareness would be deeply ingrained in her bones. Li Hongyuan's stomach was full, and his heart was satisfied. Jingwan wanted to take a nap, and Li Hongyuan also accompanied her. When she fell asleep, he got up and called Nanigong and Eunuch Mu. After asking, he got the answer. Li Hongyuan couldn't help laughing. How could this be described as a vinegar jar? It was clearly a sea of vinegar. She was so happy just because he hadn't touched other women before. Her possessiveness wanted the unity of body and mind. She wanted everything. If one was missing, she would probably abandon it like a worn-out shoe. In this life, Li Hongyuan had kept his chastity not only because he knew that Jingwan cared about this aspect. In fact, in his previous life, his desires had been relatively indifferent. Because he was a prince, he was like most men. He had never cared about other women's feelings, let alone serve them wholeheartedly. As long as he was satisfied, it was fine. In reality, other than certain places that they had to touch, including his princess consort, it seemed that they didn't have much intimate contact with him. After a certain amount of time, they would naturally separate. There was not a single exception. Because he was gifted, every time he slept with them, they were very unwilling to get close to him. They were even a little afraid because he was too ruthless and brought them only pain and no pleasure. They suffered every time. Anyone would be unhappy. They were unhappy, and Li Hongyuan was naturally disdainful. They just wanted a child and tried their best to seduce him. Haha, what kind of person did they think Li Hongyuan was? Therefore, those women were no different from the cold palace. Later, when he became the emperor, he was first in the chaos of war. After the country stabilized, his health gradually deteriorated. The number of times he entered the harem could be counted on one's fingers. Moreover, he felt bored in bed. Thinking about the only night with Jingwan, he could have some fun. In the last few years, he didn't enter the harem at all. As for the empress, who the hell was that? Except for Consort Xian, who was in charge of the harem, there was no other woman above the rank of consort. The court officials knew about his health condition, and he was known as a tyrant. There were only a few women in his harem, and no one dared to say a word. The influence of that time seemed to be carried over to this life, and some situations naturally became more and more serious. In the end, it wasn't that other women might have traumatized him, but that Jingwan left a deep impression in his heart. A man's passion and desire were separate. When it came to him, they couldn't be separated. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654071. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will handle it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 369. The He family's people came? Li Hongyuan lazily asked. Yes. According to Master's instructions, they blocked the door. However, knowing that Master is in the Fu, they didn't intend to leave. Because of Jingwan, Li Hongyuan's mood was not bad. However, he also saw the bruise on Jingwan's arm. That was the person he held at the apex of his heart. Someone actually hurt her. It was absolutely unforgivable. Bring them to the martial arts arena. As he spoke, Li Hongyuan stood up. Although it wasn't a good time to move his muscles and bones, but for a living king of hell, who would do whatever he wanted to do, did he need to pick a time to do something? Naturally, he didn't need to. Inside the martial arts arena, there were weapon racks on both sides. Although they might not be used, there were all kinds of weapons. Li Hongyuan took the spear that he was most comfortable with. The spear was more than 1 zhang long. The body of the spear was pitch black and carved with exquisite patterns. The surface was faintly glowing. The spearhead was bright, and the cold light was threatening. With a flick of his hand, he grabbed the end of the spear and skillfully shook it. The entire body of the spear shook and made a buzzing sound. After that, he executed a set of spear techniques. In his hands for a long time, it was as if he was using his arms and fingers. As the saying goes, the body is like a swimming dragon, graceful like a startled swan. When the imperial bodyguards brought the little tyrant he and his bodyguards over, Li Hongyuan's spear techniques were only half completed. Not to mention the little tyrant whose hands and feet were broken. The others were all people who had truly fought on the battlefield. At this time, when they saw Li Hongyuan, they couldn't help but be aghast. It must be known that Jin Qinhuang's illustrious reputation was something they had all heard of. However, seeing the other party in this manner, Some of the rumors were instantly shattered. At the very least, this man absolutely couldn't be useless. That cold, murderous aura, every move, every style, all revealed a murderous intent. This wasn't a prince who lived like a prince, but a killing god who walked down from the battlefield. At this moment, their eyes were all on Li Hongyuan. They forgot about the little Gongzi that they were supposed to protect and let him lie on the ground like soft mud. After a set of spear techniques was completed, the spear was stuck on the ground with a bang. It felt as if the ground was about to split open. Li Hongyuan's figure was like the gun in his hand, a pole. 2 people in a team. Come and fight with this prince. If you win, this prince will consider meeting the He family. If you lose, Li Hongyuan's eyes fell on little gangster He. He suddenly curled his lips into a smile. It was supposed to be an extremely seductive smile, but at this moment it made people shudder. It won't be as simple as breaking your arms and legs. After all, little gangster, he only had his joints dislocated, and his bones weren't really hurt. These soldiers who were temporarily acting as guards wanted to save him without hesitation at that time, but when they realized this, they restrained themselves. However, at this moment, they thought of what the people in the prince's mansion said at that time. You should be glad that the master doesn't have the time to deal with you now. If the master did it himself, even if you didn't die, you would be half dead. Now, they believed it without any hesitation. Li Hongyuan was standing in the middle of the field, so they didn't have a choice. Therefore, the 8 people looked at each other and quickly divided into 4 groups. They didn't dare to be arrogant and say things like one-on-one. They also didn't feel that Jin Qinhuang was looking down on them. There were some things that people with discerning eyes could see. Moreover, they were able to mix in from new recruits to veterans. They often had a beast-like intuition that allowed them to survive on the battlefield again and again. The strength of the enemy, they could basically sense it at first glance. Choose your own weapon. Seeing that you are guarding Qi Yuan's territory, this prince will remind you. If you don't show your ability, you will die in vain. In the capital, this prince has killed a few people. Killing is killing. There's no difference whether it's a noble or a lowly one. That's right, these people were loyal to the country, so Li Hongyuan slightly respected them. The 2 people's hearts trembled. They didn't dare to be negligent in the slightest. They chose their weapons and directly attacked. They were boorish people and didn't pay attention to any rules. Because on the battlefield, no one would talk about rules with you. Moreover, these people, although they had been trained, but more of their killing skills were trained on the battlefield. They didn't talk about any moves. They only had one purpose, kill, kill, kill. In reality, ever since Li Hongyuan came back, he really didn't have a chance to use his real strength. He usually practiced his moves. Even when he looked for Fu Yunting to feed his moves, he still had a sense of propriety. Even last year at White Dragon Temple, because he wanted to put on a trick of injuring himself to gain the enemy's confidence in front of Jingwan, he only used about half of his strength. Also, when he encountered an assassination on the way to the Summer Palace, he still mostly vented his emotions. But now his blood was really boiling. Boiling, of course, he didn't show any mercy. Moreover, he spent a lot of time on the battlefield in his previous life. Even the emperor had to take the lead, because at that time, Li Hongyuan was truly crazy and fearless. The people he was facing were indeed people who had been on the battlefield and killed many enemies. However, ever since the He family took over the northeast of Qiyuan, there had never been a large-scale war. Compared to what Li Hongyuan had seen and experienced, it was a far cry from what he had seen and experienced. Moreover, he knew all kinds of ways to use it on the battlefield. Li Hongyuan used his real strength, and the aura on his body became more and more obvious. Then, not long after, blood could be seen. Throat, heart, eyes, and even lower body. In Li Hongyuan's eyes, the experienced people seemed to be full of openings. There was no way to avoid or escape. Fortunately, Li Hongyuan always stopped at the last moment and didn't cause any serious damage to them. This was enough to show that he had super strong control of his strength. The more he was like this, the more terrifying it was. This meant that he really could easily control the life and death of his opponents. And E and the others knew that their master was very strong, but they didn't know how strong he was. Now that they saw it, it was probably beyond their expectations. However, with just these two people, it was impossible for their master to use his full strength. They could feel that Li Hongyuan's current state would be very disappointing if he continued. If he was disappointed, he might really kill them. In fact, as Li Hongyuan said, it was nothing if he killed two people. However, these people couldn't be killed. Because if they were killed, it would probably cause the entire Northeast army of 100,000 people to not hide it from their master or the imperial family. Thinking about it, they knew that they were risking their lives at the border. In the end, their brothers, who went through fire and water, didn't die on the battlefield, but were inexplicably killed by the Wangye of the country they were loyal to. How could they not be angry and sullen? At that time, it was hard to say what the consequences would be. And E thought for a moment, 2 more of you go. Making a decision without authorization, an E was also prepared to receive punishment later. An E could see it clearly, and so could these soldiers. Without hesitation, they directly chose their weapons and charged forward. They originally thought that it might be the result of 1 + 1 = 2, but in fact, it was far greater than 2. As the direct opponent, Li Hongyuan could naturally clearly feel it and quickly discovered the reason. It wasn't that the 2 people who came later were stronger, but because the 4 people formed a small formation with both offense and defense. Thus, how could the power not increase? This kind of unforeseen event made an E and the others a little worried. Their standing posture involuntarily changed, ready to attack at any time. However, they quickly discovered that their worries were unnecessary. Although it was a formation, Li Hongyuan immediately saw that this small formation had been simplified and couldn't display its full power. Moreover, there were also flaws. If his guess wasn't wrong, the complete formation should be 8 people, perhaps just adding the 4 outside the field. Li Hongyuan's offensive was slightly restrained. It looked like he was being suppressed. However, he seized the flaw and destroyed the formation in one fell swoop. The original power plummeted. Perhaps because they were caught off guard, the effect of 1 + 1 was less than 2. As a result, the field returned to the initial situation. The 4 people had more and more wounds on their bodies. Perhaps it was about time. Li Hongyuan used his long spear to send them flying one after another. The 4 people who smashed hard on the ground only felt their chests tremble slightly and coughed up blood slightly. However, they didn't have any resentment. Instead, they looked at Li Hongyuan with excitement and reverence. Their thoughts were the simplest, and that was to worship the strong. Li Hongyuan's aura didn't diminish again. When the remaining 4 people heard this, they immediately went on stage. All of them were somewhat excited. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654074. HTML chapter error. Click here to report registration free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading website, Bicken.com. Chapter 370. The people of the Wangfu were in awe of Li Hongyuan, but these soldiers were purely in reverence. It was mainly because of the first impression and the degree of understanding of the real Li Hongyuan. Don't look at how these soldiers were like now. If they really worked for him like an E and the others, it wouldn't be long before they would be like them. Thinking about it this way, they were a bit envious of these soldiers. As the saying goes, ignorance is bliss. These words weren't false at all. The last 4, as expected, had the same ending as the first 4. However, the light in these people's eyes was even more intense. After watching the battle, an E was thoughtful. He seemed to understand a little bit of his master's purpose for suddenly doing this. Beating around the bush to deal with people had never been their master style. His muscles and bones were completely relaxed. Li Hongyuan's body heated up, and there was an indescribable carefree feeling. He casually threw the spear in his hand, and it steadily landed on the weapon rack. Then he walked towards the little gangster, he who was lying on the ground. Only then did the few soldiers restrain their exposed emotions and somewhat nervously looked over. They had lost, and the one who suffered was the little Gongzi. But with their current situation, even if they were to face Jin Qinhuang alone, they would not be able to stop him, not to mention that there were still a bunch of guards standing guard. The group of imperial guards of the Wangfu also looked over, but they wouldn't have known if they didn't see. Now that they saw it, the expression on their faces cracked a bit. Actually, they had already discovered before that this boy was actually very unyielding. When his hands and feet were broken, he only frowned at that time. Just based on this point, they still respected him as a man. He was worthy of being born in a family of generals. If it was those dandy Gongzi in the capital, they would be howling like pigs being slaughtered. Only this one, his mother, that fanatical expression was even more intense than those soldiers. Li Hongyuan's feet subtly paused. Although others didn't see it, his following kicks were not the least bit careless. The first kick landed on the shoulder, and the little gangster, he who was lying on the ground, was flipped half a circle. The angle also shifted. After that, Li Hongyuan took 2 steps forward with a feeling of taking a leisurely stroll. The next kick landed on the side of the ribs, making people seem to hear the sound of bones cracking. Taking a leisurely stroll, or whatever, it was definitely an illusion. After several kicks, little gangster, he spat out blood as expected. It was obvious that his internal organs were injured. However, he only let out 2 muffled groans. He didn't cry or beg for mercy. Little gangster, he was definitely a tough guy. In the end, Li Hongyuan stepped on little Tyrant He's chest, but he didn't use much strength. He squatted down, moved his toes, and touched little Tyrant He's chin. Then, he met little Tyrant He's burning eyes. Alright, this description was a bit strange, but it was the truth. Although little Tyrant He's injuries were not light, and his expression was slightly distorted, he was still filled with passion. If Jingwan was here, she would probably give him a reasonable title, which was a fanboy, a brainless fanboy. Li Hongyuan didn't have any other emotions, except for the first time. It wasn't that he hadn't seen little Tyrant He's condition in other people before. For example, Ruan Fangfei in the past, and some of the girls who were favored by Shengdo. However, in comparison, it wasn't so obvious. Of course, Li Hongyuan also knew that the meaning behind this was different. Speaking of little gangster Li Hongyuan was very familiar with him. Of course, that was in his previous life. According to the time, he had to wait for a few more years. When he went on expeditions, little gangster, he was one of his valiant generals. Little gangster, his name was Sea of Consciousness. He was the youngest son of He Jinwei, the general who was currently guarding the northeast border. He had 4 older brothers, 2 of whom were direct descendants, and 2 of whom were concubines. Of the 4 brothers, only 2 were left. The He family was different from other families. Because they were guarding the border, they suffered a lot of losses. Therefore, among the brothers, no matter if they were direct descendants or concubines, they had a good relationship. The He family was actually quite decent. The He family's daughters-in-law didn't seem to have a high status, but most of them were women who weren't inferior to men. Although they didn't go to the battlefield with their husbands, they had at least guarded a city. However, among the He family's descendants, Sea of Consciousness was considered a weirdo. Perhaps it was because his closest brother was almost 10 years older than him, so in comparison, he might be a bit more indulgent. However, the He family didn't have the mindset of spoiling their children. Their upbringing could be said to be very strict, whether in terms of thinking or body. Because they were strict when they were young, when they grew up, they would have a better chance of surviving on the battlefield. The reason why Sea of Consciousness was called a weirdo was because his physical fitness was very good. At the same age, he had to at least triple the training to achieve the same effect. When he wasn't even 10 years old, he could already beat his older brother. However, this kid's thoughts were very rebellious. He didn't commit all kinds of crimes, but he was very arrogant and liked to cause trouble. At home, he was punished, beaten, locked, his legs were broken, and his ribs were broken, but it didn't have any effect at all. It seemed that he was born with a hard bone. In the Northeast, it became a ghost's worry. When Sea of Consciousness was 12 years old, he led a group of people to sneak out of the city. Once he went out, it was close to 10 days. His family was crazy with anxiety. In the end, they didn't even have any hope. In the end, he came back alive and well. He led people to play a sneak attack and really destroyed a small tribe. Of course, in the end, there was no reward. He was ruthlessly beaten up until his skin was torn and his flesh was torn. He only got out of bed after 10 days and half a month. After that, the people at home strictly guarded against him. At any time, they sent a few valiant soldiers to follow him. Generally, soldiers took turns to follow him. As a result, these people had a deep impression of this young master. Sea of Consciousness learned many things from him. Because he was too energetic, when he was 13 years old, he was simply brought to the battlefield. Although he was a bit young, the whole family didn't object. In reality, Sea of Consciousness seemed to be born to fight. On the battlefield, he could be said to be invincible. Moreover, he was a complete madman. The soldiers below actually admired him very much. Occasionally, they would also be very respectful. The reason why they were respectful was because this respect usually didn't last for more than 3 seconds. In the end, he was a very troublesome person. Sea of Consciousness was now 16 years old. A year ago, he defeated his father. Half a year ago, he defeated the He family's most powerful elder brother. On this trip back to the capital, only General He Jinwei's eldest son remained in the northeastern border city. The rest of He Jinwei's branch had all returned to the capital. Speaking of which, Sea of Consciousness was what He Jinwei was most worried about. He was afraid that he would cause trouble again. The capital wasn't like the border city. If he caused trouble in the border city, for the sake of the He family, basically no one would care too much. In the capital, if he accidentally offended the influential officials, the He family might not be able to settle it. Because the He family guarded the border, it could be said that they worked hard and contributed a lot. His Majesty treated them well, and they also had some responsibilities. However, as long as one was smart, they should know that in this kind of situation, they needed to be more careful. If anything happened, they would be ruthlessly attacked. But they didn't think that something would still happen. Moreover, it was to hit a big iron plate. When the He family found out that the rascal rode a horse on the street and collided with Jin Qinhuang's carriage, not only did he not apologize, but he also dared to act violently, and was arrested by the people of Jin Qinhuangfu. They were angry and anxious, causing the family to be thrown off their feet. Before returning to the capital, they specially warned him, especially Jin Qinhuang, to never, ever offend him. They even enlarged the logo of Jin Qinhuang Fu a lot, wishing that they could directly stuff it into his brain. After entering the capital, they also restrained him. Who knew that because they had just entered the capital, there were many things to do, and they were exceptionally busy. Going out would cause a big disaster. Although they quickly found out that Jin Qinhuang wasn't in the carriage, Jin Qinhuang Fei was. The more noble a woman's status was, the more delicate she was in their eyes. She couldn't be touched. If something bad happened to her, it was simply asking for a person's life. However, there was one more thing to be thankful for. That rascal didn't act impulsively. Perhaps he realized that something was wrong, or perhaps he was persuaded. Otherwise, based on his martial strength, if he let loose and fought, it would be like fighting on the battlefield. It would be strange if he didn't die. Li Honyuan looked at He Jihai. In his previous life, he was familiar with him after he ascended the throne. At that time, he was the only adult male left in the He family. Including He Jinwei, they all died 2 months later. And the day they died, it just so happened to be New Year's Eve. At that time, He Jihai didn't have this unbridled brashness. His entire person was gloomy, just like a walking murder weapon. When he followed him to battle, he witnessed He Jihai's ruthlessness and extraordinary skills in killing the enemy. For many years after the war, He Jihai could be said to be the stabilizing force of Qi Yuan. Just his name alone was enough to make the enemy's expression change. Li Hongyuan's current martial arts skills, to a certain extent, originated from He Jihai. However, He Jihai wasn't suitable to be a commander-in-chief of the entire army. He was only suitable to be a general who charged and broke through the enemy lines. Moreover, he was the kind of general who needed someone to assist him and mobilize the troops for him. He was only responsible for charging and killing. It wasn't that He Jihai was a boorish man who didn't understand the art of war and strategy. On the contrary, He Jihai's brain was actually quite powerful. Although he wasn't that righteous and liked to take the unconventional path, he was very good at mobilizing troops and dispatching troops. Winning with fewer troops was simply his specialty. It was just that he had lost all his family members, and he himself had lost the ability to reproduce due to his serious injuries. Therefore, the only thing he had left was revenge. After the battle, he was like a sharp weapon without thinking. He only listened to Li Hongyuan's orders and commands. He fought so hard and was so fierce only because he didn't care about life and death. And when the battle was over, nothing could be seen from his appearance, but inside, he was already a useless person. At that time, Li Hongyuan saw it all. Therefore, when he had the chance to start over, he cherished talent and wanted to protect He Jihai and make him a real commander-in-chief. He wanted to make the enemy not only change their countenance, but also make the enemy's army tremble in fear. In this way, he was bound to protect the He family. This was also the reason why the He family returned to the capital this time. Of course, Li Hongyuan didn't bring them back to abandon the northeast border and ignore it. If there was no He family to guard it, the battle after more than 2 months would only be more tragic. He Jinwei was bound to go back. Li Hongyuan would remind him to strengthen the defense and secretly prepare some military supplies for him. In case there was a contingency, it would be good to keep the He family alive. Li Hongyuan also knew what He Jihai was like now. But when he saw him in person, he was still a little surprised. What was even more unexpected was that this brat had offended his wife the moment he returned to the capital, causing her to be injured. As such, no matter how much potential and talent he had, Li Hongyuan had to teach him a lesson and then properly train him. If he did not achieve his goal, Li Hongyuan would definitely personally cripple him. "Your Highness, you're very powerful. Why don't you fight with this commoner?" Before Li Hongyuan could speak, He Jihai said enthusiastically and expectantly. So, this brainless fanboy of his was a little different. He Jihai's military merits were actually quite high, but his father had never asked for a title for him. These military merits were distributed to other people. He Jihai didn't care. Because of this, the capital basically didn't know that there was such a fierce person in the He family. However, when he said this, those soldiers couldn't bear to look directly at him. However, it was completely expected. They were all too clear about this young master's temperament. How much effort would it take for this prince to take your life now? Your Highness won't take this commoner's life. What? This prince has no power or influence, so I'm afraid of your He family. Li Hongyuan didn't get angry. No, it has nothing to do with the He family. It's just that intuition tells this commoner that your Highness won't do that. Li Hongyuan had seen He Jihai's intuition before. In his previous life, he even relied on his intuition to save a battle. Do you know why you're in Jin Xin Wang Fu? I know. This commoner can apologize to Wang Fei Nyang, kowtow, and admit his wrongs. As long as I can fight with your Highness, this commoner will do anything. He was still enthusiastic. Therefore, He Jihai sold himself so easily. So much so that for many years in the future, when he recalled today, he couldn't help but want to bang his head against the wall. He was really too stupid. How could this master's heart be so black? It was better to quickly scram far away. Running around the borders for a lifetime, He didn't want to face Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan stood up. Take him away. He didn't know what Li Hongyuan was going to do. So naturally, he could only obediently be taken away. Let Gong Jiu go take a look. Just let this prince see if Gong Jiu's medicine can soften people's bones. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654077. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is exempted. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Chapter 371. After Li Hongyuan finished dealing with He Zhihai, he went back to accompany his wife to sleep. As for whether He Zhihai would cry for his father and mother in pain, that was none of his business. Perhaps it was because of the familiar person, the familiar smell. When Li Hongyuan approached, Jingwan unconsciously rubbed into his arms. Her head rested on his arm, and her arm rested on his chest. She also sleep-talked, calling out Ayuan. Li Hongyuan chuckled and moved his body to let Jingwan sleep more comfortably. He touched her face and kissed her. At least at this moment, Li Hongyuan's heart was abnormally satisfied. The person at the top of his heart who had become obsessed with obsession was his legitimate wife. At this moment, she was peacefully lying in his arms, which was enough to soothe all his negative emotions. And in order to maintain everything now, and even let Jingwan be more unrestrained, he must hold the power in his hands, and no one can say anything. Jingwan woke up, and before she opened her eyes, she rubbed Li Hongyuan's shoulder and whispered twice, Ayuan en? Ayuan en? Ayuan. Li Hongyuan turned his head to look at her and smiled silently, and I'm here. Ayuan, Ayuan, Ayuan. Jingwan called out again and again without saying anything else. Li Hongyuan also responded patiently. She didn't know how many times she called out, but Jingwan's heart seemed to finally be satisfied. Then she remembered the things she should have asked the day before, such as the matter of Prince Zhongfu catching fire. Later, I'll have people organize all the big and small things in the capital in the past 6 months. When the time comes, you can take your time to look at it. When Li Hongyuan said this, in a place where Jingwan couldn't see, his eyes flickered. Speaking of which, although he deliberately let people go easy on him, someone really could do it, which was indeed amazing. Jingwan responded, How do you plan to deal with the He family's matter? Li Hongyuan didn't hide anything, and briefly told her what happened before. Although Jingwan didn't know how powerful Gong Jiu's medicine would be, she was quite optimistic about him. Well, there was a condition called hypersensitivity to pain, which would increase the pain by countless times. A small cut or hit could make people feel excruciating pain. Maybe Gong Jiu had such a medicine. If so, she would light 32 candles for He Jiu's little gangster. I heard that in the past years, General he came back with a few bodyguards and didn't have any family members. This year, is there a bad rumor? Or is there something wrong with the He family? Or is someone plotting something again? Wan, you're overthinking. It's not like that. Although the He family has worked hard and made great contributions, the Northeast is relatively stable and there are no major wars. Naturally, the He family's influence is limited, and it's far from the capital. Similarly, the He family guards the Northeast and basically has no contact with the capital. No matter how fierce the fight for the throne is, it has nothing to do with them. No one from the He family is in the capital. So the sky is high and the earth is far away. Therefore, the He family could be considered another kind of neutral party. The reason why so many people from the He family came back this time is because there's something strange going on at the northeast border. There might be a major war before spring next year. It's not appropriate for the entire He family to guard the northeast. If something unexpected happens, some people should be avoided as much as possible. So, Ayuan, you're the one who facilitated this? Li Hongyuan's voice was muffled as he responded. Jingwan chuckled. I know that a Yuan is very resourceful, so he must have received some accurate information. However, the imperial court might not know about it. Even if they knew, they probably wouldn't care. After all, the Northeast has been relatively stable for many years. Why would there be a major war suddenly? If there really is a war, or if there are heavy casualties, they might even push the blame on the He family. There's rarely a time when there's an adequate supply of provisions. The He family's Northeast Army is no exception. If there's a major war, even an Iron Army will be like a sick cat without the support of provisions. Since a Yuan can't bear to do that, he must have prepared more than just a few members of the He family. She knew what he was secretly preparing. Wan knows me well. Don't flatter me. Li Hongyuan chuckled. I'm telling the truth. Moreover, in her previous life, the imperial court really did push all the blame on the He family. They said that they didn't supervise the situation properly. If He Zhihai wasn't the only one left in the He family, they might have even accused them of treason. Although the He family suffered heavy casualties and was almost wiped out, the enemy didn't fare any better. Otherwise, Qi Yuan wouldn't have been able to clean up the mess so easily. Perhaps a large piece of land in the northeast of Qi Yuan would have fallen into the enemy's hands. After getting up, she was in high spirits. As for little brat he wasn't a bad person in nature. It's about time to send them back. Since Jingwan said so, and Li Hongyuan didn't have any other instructions, the matter was naturally settled. However, the He family didn't manage to enter Jin Qinhuang Fu. Even He Jinwei didn't manage to see Li Hongyuan. The whole family was exceptionally anxious, afraid that He Zhihai would really die in Jin Qinhuang Fu. Although reason told them that no matter how lawless Jin Qinhuang was, he wouldn't go to this extent. However, it was possible to turn He Zhihai into a useless person. He Zhihai was only 16 years old and was already the #1 general in the Northeast Army. Now that he had become a useless person, it was too painful. Since they couldn't see him, the He family could only go back first. Although the He family didn't want to make the matter known to everyone, but in the entire capital, the people who should know already knew. Because it was a special period, no one stood out to blame Li Hongyuan with the He family's previous righteous indignation. They said that little Gongzi, he was in the wrong first, and should be punished according to law. Jin Qinhuang shouldn't abuse his power, and so on. Not to mention that Jin Qinhuang couldn't be provoked. This was an occasional case. If any action was out of line, Lu Qingdi, who was still in a fit of anger, might label them as forming a clique. Let's wait for one more night. If I still don't see him tomorrow, I will directly enter the palace to see His Majesty. He Jianwei's resolute face was surrounded by deep worry at this time. This evil creature. When he comes back this time, I will break his legs and make sure he can't get out of bed before he returns to the border town. Seeing His Majesty, if possible, the He family didn't want to take this step. To what extent Lu Qingdi pampered Jin Qinhuang, they especially understood. They were a family of generals, but it didn't mean that they were all boorish people who didn't understand the ways of the world. That night, the He family didn't sleep well. After breakfast the next day, He Jianwei decided to enter the palace. But before entering the palace, he still made a trip to Jin Qinhuang Fu to see if there could be a turn for the better. The result of this trip was somewhat unexpected. From afar, he saw the gate of Jin Qinhuang Fu open, and a group of people came out. Who else could it be if it wasn't He Zhihai and his 8 guards? He Jianwei hurriedly sped up. When he got closer, the gate of Jin Qinhuang Fu closed again. The other 8 people were still okay. Their clothes were a bit tattered and there were bloodstains on them, but their spirits looked good. Only He Zhihai was supported by people and looked half dead and dying. He Jianwei's heart thumped. He had never seen his son like this. Even when his legs were broken and his ribs were broken, he was still able to toss and turn with full energy. He Jianwei's body trembled and his lips trembled, but he didn't say anything. Let's talk when we get back to the Fu quickly. Being on the battlefield all year round, this military doctor definitely couldn't be lacking. This time, the most powerful military doctor in the Northeast Army also came back. A large group of people surrounded him, anxiously waiting for the diagnosis results. The 8 military men looked at each other in dismay. That they actually wanted to say little Gongzi was actually fine, but forget it, now they couldn't get a word in edgewise. After the military doctor's diagnosis, his expression was a bit strange, but the He family became even more restless because of him. The military doctor slightly paused. Does little Gongzi's body have any special feeling right now? It's all in those places. He Ji Hai was weak. Pain. It hurts little Yi to death. His mother, for the whole afternoon and the whole night. He had never been in so much pain. The He family members looked at each other in dismay. This evil creature was the kind of person whose bones were dislocated and immediately climbed up a tree to steal birds. The kind of person who climbed up the house to tear the tiles. He actually cried out in pain. Other than that, the military doctor continued to ask. He Ji Hai rolled his eyes, understanding the military doctor's meaning. Little Yi is very good. I'm not crippled or disabled. Old man, can't you diagnose? The military doctor touched his grizzled beard, the expression on his face relaxing. It seems that little Gongzi is indeed fine. He turned around and faced the He family members. Little Gongzi's body does have some injuries, but he has already taken medicine, and the effect is obvious. This old man will prescribe some more medicine, and it won't take long for him to recover. The He family members heaved a huge sigh of relief. What exactly happened? He Jinwei asked. Only then did the guard open his mouth and explain the whole matter. The He family members' expressions were very strange. So, little brother is in so much pain that he's hovering between life and death. He has been howling for too long, and now he has no strength at all? Fourth brother, shut up. He Ji Hai flew into a rage out of humiliation. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654082. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, ambicken.com. Chapter 372. He Jianwei stepped forward and sat beside He Ji Hai's bed. Without holding back, he patted He Ji Hai's chest. He Ji Hai shuddered and howled miserably. The sudden sound startled everyone in the room. Then they looked at He Ji Hai with a bit of disbelief and some worry. He Ji Hai's face turned green. Did they think he was willing? His mother, it was really too painful. He couldn't bear it at all. It should be that the effect of the medicine hasn't completely disappeared. Once the effect is gone, it won't be like this. The military doctor said with a smile. Knowing what was going on, the He family looked at He Ji Hai as if they were looking at a rare treasure. If he really howled like this for the entire afternoon and night, to still have this spirit, it should be considered not bad. Moreover, his throat hasn't gone hoarse. He Ji Hai looked at this group of family members who rejoiced in his misfortune. He was too lazy to even roll his eyes and didn't have the mind to explain. At this moment, it was indeed very painful, but it was basically within the range of tolerance. In any case, from small to large, each and every one of them were waiting for him to suffer, wanting to see him make a fool of himself. They all wanted him to be taught a lesson and behave himself. He Jianwei also touched the short beard on his chin. If there's a chance, ask Jin Qinhuang what medicine was used. The effect is so good. Even if I'm thick-skinned, I'll ask for it. The effect was good. Clearly, there were two meanings. Not only was the effect of the medicine good, it was also better to deal with He Ji Hai. And, indeed, I've never seen Xiao Hai so well behaved. He Ji Hai's grandmother, old Madam He, nodded in agreement. He Ji Hai had never been a person who could hide his emotions. Therefore, everything was written on his face. At this moment, his face was like a color palette, exceptionally splendid. After relaxing a little, it was time for the proper business. What did Father say to you before entering the capital that you treat Father's words as wind? He Jianwei's face was exceptionally stern. He Ji Hai didn't say a word. The capital isn't like the border cities. I know that you're messing around, but you know what you're doing. You won't go overboard. However, in the capital, a small matter can cost someone's life and implicate the entire family. Why can't you behave? Do you have to throw the entire family in for you to be happy? Dad, I was wrong. I won't cause trouble in the future. He Ji Hai lowered his eyelids and said in a low voice, You have to keep your word. He Spiritual C did not say that he was grounded, because he knew that if this kid really wanted to go out, he would have a way to get out. There was simply no way to lock him up. It was better to let him walk through the door and let someone follow him. That would be of some use. He Ji Hai's eyes were filled with excitement. He indeed would not go out to cause trouble again, because his next goal was very clear: to find Jin Qinhuang to fight. He Jianwei's eyelids twitched. The more he looked, the more he felt that it was impossible for this kid to be so honest. There must be something he didn't know. He prepared to ask the people who had followed this evil creature out. At this moment, those bodyguards had gone to change their clothes. The wounds on their bodies also needed to be examined. Originally, the soldiers wanted to downplay the part where they exchanged blows with Li Hongyuan. Now that they were faced with General He's cold and stern face, all of them were like quails and confessed everything. He Jianwei only felt his temples throbbing. He was very clear what kind of moral character his son had. When they were in the border city, he had not been lenient when he exchanged blows with his father. Now he had the guts to set his eyes on a Qinhuang, and it was the kind that could not be provoked. Originally, when he had offended Jin Qinhuang Fei, the other party had just tidied him up and did not lose an arm or a leg. He should be extremely thankful. But this matter was not over yet. He was still thinking about how to deal with the aftermath. Sure enough, he should directly break that evil creature's legs so that he could not get out of bed. That would also save him a lot of worry and trouble. He Jianwei could almost imagine, wherever Jin Qinhuang went, that evil creature would block him. That scene was simply unbearable to look at. After all, he had done this kind of thing many times in the northeast border city. It was only until those people were all knocked down that it gradually stopped. Fortunately, those soldiers were still broad-minded and did not argue with that boy. After all, to be flipped over by a young teenager in public was a very shameful matter. They even said that the younger generation would surpass the older generation. Even if those people were indignant, they would not do anything to that evil creature on account of his face. Jin Qinhuang was different. If he really wanted to block the door, he had many guards around him. One word from him could make that evil creature suffer. After all, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. If Jin Qinhuang was really angry and let people completely cripple him, he, as the father, could only pinch his nose and swallow his bitterness. There was no place to judge, and he did not have the face to do so. He Jianwei wiped his face. There were several times when he had the impulse to beat that evil creature. When that evil creature exchanged blows, he was not lenient. Usually, if he really broke his legs, he would not dare to fight back, but in the end, he did not have the heart to be associated with such an evil creature. Great General, he felt that his lifespan could be shortened by 10 or 20 years. Forget it. First, apologizing to Jin Qinhuang was the proper thing to do. It was just that he was a military general. In the entire capital, he did not have any close in-laws. At most, he only had distant relatives. In the past few years, he would come back with his personal guards. He would not hold a banquet, nor would he pay a visit. This time, because his family had returned, there was a possibility that he would stay in the capital in the future. A banquet was a must. Before that, it would not be good for him to pay a visit to anyone. Even if it was to apologize, it would not be good. This was in consideration of both sides. After thinking about it, Great General, he decided to start with Lu Qingdi. He explained the cause and effect clearly and let Lu Qingdi help to build a bridge. This could also show his loyalty. Before entering the palace, Great General he still went to see He Jihai. The father and son talked about something behind closed doors. Whether it was effective or not, he did not know for the time being. He Zhenwei was very skilled in war. His EQ was also very high. After briefly explaining the matter, he began to pour out his grievances. That evil creature was such a disgrace, how could he not be worry-free, how could he give people a headache, But in the end, this evil creature is this official son. I can't really ignore him. Lu Qingdi was not only greatly moved, he could empathize with him. He also began to pour out his grievances. He also had an evil creature son, beloved official he. You have been far away in the border city all year round. You don't know. The living hell king's fighting strength was much more valiant than little gangster he. When Great General he heard this, he sighed endlessly. So what? His son could still live well, it was really a miracle. With such a comparison, he actually felt that his son was actually quite obedient. Just think, if his son was really like Jin Qinhuang, he reckoned that he would have long been angered to death. After all, no matter how he was, he could not be like Lu Qingdi, who could suppress everything. Zhen's evil creature. These 2 years, he has restrained himself a lot. Although he still occasionally angers Zhen, contradicts Zhen, but those messy things have decreased. Beloved official, you don't need to take it to heart. After all, it was my son who bumped into the carriage and frightened Jin Qinhuang Fei. I should apologize to Wang Fei Nyang. Lu Chengdi's finger tapped on the table. Zhen is very clear about old Six temperament. If something makes him unhappy, he won't let today's matter pass until tomorrow. As long as he stops, this matter is basically over and he won't remember it. Since he released your family's boy, it means that old Six's wife is fine. If beloved official really feels apologetic, just let your mother make a trip to Jin Qinhuang Fu, and it will be fine. Hearing Lu Chengdi's words, Great General he was relieved. When He Zhenwei returned home and said this, old Madam He and others were also relieved. They, as military officers, were poor. They couldn't take out much gold, silver, and jewels. But in the Northeast, it didn't mean that there were no good things. Precious fur, precious herbs, it was more abundant than other places. No matter what, they were the local tyrant of the border town. Even if they didn't take the people's wealth, they had accumulated a lot of these things. Handing over the visiting card, they also got the other party's reply. The next day, when old Madam he was preparing to go out, He Jihai jumped out again. He firmly expressed that he also wanted to go to Jin Qinhuang Fu. He Zhenwei's veins popped out on his forehead. Everyone said that no one knows a son better than his father. Correspondingly, no one knows a father better than his son. How could He Jihai not know what his father meant? Pa, it's me who bumped into Jin Qinhuang Fei's carriage. I should apologize. Moreover, my injury is not completely healed. How can I fight with Jin Qinhuang? I know that there won't be a good result. If I go up and get beaten up, wouldn't it delay the time to have a good fight? I'm not that stupid. He Zhenwei was irritated by that have a good fight. His hand was itchy, and he wanted to slap someone. All right, go. I don't allow you to go. Maybe we'll secretly climb over the wall of Jin Qinhuang Fu. Old Madam, he said helplessly. https://www.beacon.com/11/11807/6654084. HTML chapter error. Please click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.beacon.com. Biku Go mobile reading website, mbeacon.com. Chapter 373. Old Madam he keeps he high by her side to prevent him from making trouble when she doesn't pay attention to him. Today, He Jihai was well behaved. He did whatever his grandmother asked him to do. Perhaps because there was another man Li Hongyuan accompanied her. When they met, old madam, he didn't hesitate to apologize. She didn't beat around the bush. She didn't beat around the bush. She was straightforward. She was different from other women. Li Hongyuan played the role of a guest perfectly. Although Jingwan was in a high position, she respected those elders who didn't flaunt their seniority. Because she understood old madam, she had a good impression of her. She was wise, sensible, and righteous. In short, she deserved to be admired. Old madam, he could see who was the leader. She was a bit surprised, but she didn't ask anything. Old madam, he glanced at him and asked her son to apologize. It's okay if she didn't look at him. She looked at him and couldn't help but twitch her eyes. Her eyes were full of excitement. If you didn't know, she would think that she saw a beautiful woman and fell in love with her at first sight. Then she looked at him again. He was indeed beautiful, a top-notch beauty. But he was a real man, a real handsome man. Li Hongyuan was so handsome, but he didn't look feminine at all. When he was young, it was hard to distinguish whether he was a man or a woman. But since Li Hongyuan was 10 years old, he had a subtle and cruel influence. Those who used to make fun of him didn't have a good ending. Jingwan also saw He Zhihai's expression, but she didn't show any special expression. He was just a crazy fan. It's not like she didn't see it before. Well, because the person who was being fangirled was her husband, Jingwan still felt a little strange. Jingwan slightly tilted her head and glanced at Li Hongyuan. A certain someone was unperturbed, as if he didn't notice. Old madam, he felt itchy. If it wasn't because of the occasion, she would beat him up. Xiao Hai, hurry up and apologize to the princess consort. He Zhihai came back to his senses. He was a little bully and a scoundrel, but he also inherited the natural qualities of a man from a general's family. His apology to Jingwan was quite straightforward and sincere. Jingwan accepted it, but she didn't say anything more. The He family style was there. She believed that they had taught He Zhihai a lot, and he was still like a little tyrant. She couldn't just casually say a few words to him. However, as long as he wasn't really stubborn, she believed that after this battle, he would at least be restrained in the capital. Old madam, he doesn't stay for long. After all, it's a special time. Even with Lu Chengdi's imperial decree, she still needs to be cautious. Jingwan asked Mama Gong to send him out. Little gangster he, on the other hand, kept looking back as if he was reluctant to part with him. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan with a teasing expression. Wang Yi's charm is limitless. Even men will bend down for you, unable to extricate themselves. Whether other people bend or not, it has nothing to do with Ben Wang. Ben Wang only needs to bend down for Wan Wan. Is this He family's little Gongzi counted as one of Wang Yi's flowers and plants? Do you want Chie Shun to cut him off? Jingwan won't let go. Her smile didn't change. Jin Qinwang used to be both men and women, so he didn't mind Jingwan's teasing. That's not necessary. As a husband, occasionally I should help my wife solve her worries. Wan Wan, don't worry. No one can dream of your husband. The husband and wife teased each other for a while. After the joke was over, Jingwan asked Li Hongyuan about He Zhihai's matter. He's just obsessed with martial arts. He's excited to see you, Li Hongyuan replied lazily. Jingwan nodded. She understood immediately. Let's not talk about this matter for now. It's been 2 or 3 days. How is Wan Wan reflecting on her mistake? Oh, this. Almost done. I'm preparing to clean up. Li Hongyuan nodded. This husband will wait and see. Speaking of which, to clean up a certain someone's peach blossom, some preparations were still needed. Jingwan ordered for our Jin Qinwang, Fu's steward, to see her. Jin Qinwang face smilingly expressed that she needed to know all the details of the beauties in her husband's other courtyard. How big and small they were, how they came, what their identities were, etc. Mu Gonggong inexplicably trembled. That, although Master absolutely didn't do anything wrong to Wang Fei, but the existence of so many beauties was a fact. Wang Fei's smile didn't decrease, but it made people feel that her mood was quite subtle. It didn't seem like she was angry, but it definitely couldn't be said that she was happy. Was it really that after being with Wang Ye for a long time, Wang Fei also became terrifying? It was terrifying to the point that it was a bit different. When a person's joy and anger were completely expressed on their face, it was actually easier to bear. But a gentle fear was what people couldn't bear, right? Fortunately, after Mu Gonggong returned from the Luo family and met with an accident on the road, he had already made preparations. Now, whatever Wang Fei wanted, he could immediately take it out and organize it into a book. He was simply too considerate. Well done, Jingwan praised. Wang Fei, you flatter me. It's this servant's duty. Jingwan smiled and nodded. Mu, and has always been loyal and devoted to Wang Ye. Since Mu and is so clear about these things, it must have been through your hands. You've worked hard. Muan was still complacent before, but now he had a bitter expression. That it might not be right to do things too perfectly. Now he was simply lifting a stone to smash his own feet. In Wang Fei's eyes, he must have become the ultimate lackey, the culprit who searched for beauties for Wang Ye. Such a person, in the eyes of the female master, should be chopped into pieces. Mu, and this Wang Fei remembers your loyalty. Continue to work hard. Jingwan's smile didn't change. Mu wailed in his heart. Wang Fei, please forget. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654086. HTML chapter error. Click here to report registration is exempted. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 374. In the following 2 to 3 days, the latest rumor in the capital was that Jin Qinhuang Fei was extremely jealous. The beauties in Jin Qinhuang's courtyard were either sent away, sold, or beaten to death by her. Not a single one was left. Even the courtyard where the beauties were kept was completely demolished. The things inside were all dismantled and sold. Not a single one was left. All of this was enough to show how much Jin Qinhuang Fei hated the existence of those who had no one. Previously, there was a rumor that Jin Qinhuang Fei was jealous and could not tolerate people. Moreover, she was vicious and merciless. At that time, there might have been some doubts, but this time it was really big. It was said that the beauties who were sent away were not dressed properly. It was said that the beauties who were sold were all tattooed with the word sin. It was said that the most miserable were the beauties who were beaten to death, crying and begging for mercy. They were so petty and pitiful that they could not beg Jin Qinhuang Fei to take pity on them. Not only were they beaten until their flesh was lacerated, they finally breathed their last. The beatings did not stop, and they were turned into a pile of meat paste. The blood seeped into the ground and could not be washed away. It was not so bad, but Jin Qinhuang Fei actually sat on one side, eating while observing the punishment. That scene made one's hair stand up in anger. Even if it was the notorious Jin Qinhuang, compared to Jin Qinhuang Fei, it seemed that he had to retreat. Although Jin Qinhuang's name, as the living king of hell, was an indiscriminate and comprehensive suppression, Jin Qinhuang Fei only targeted the flowers and plants around Jin Qinhuang Fei. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Jin Qinhuang Fei was not to the extent of making everyone fear her. However, it seemed that the world's attacks on her were even more aggressive. There were even people who requested the emperor to divorce such an evil woman. Such a person, without virtue, not to mention being a daughter-in-law of the emperor. Even ordinary families would divorce her and lock her up in the family temple. Those were all light punishments. The matter was far from over, as Jingwan's grandfather Luo Rongyan, the Minister of Personnel, was also implicated. Logically speaking, Luo Rongyan should be the one to be directly attacked. However, Luo Rongyan was far from being qualified to sit in the imperial court. No matter how he was impeached, it wouldn't have much of an impact in the end. Thus, no one bothered to do that useless work. Ever since Luo Peishan became the minister of the Ministry of Personnel, he had been stubborn. No matter who tried to rope him in, he had offended everyone. At this time, naturally, no one would mention the Minister of Personnel's impartiality. However, even though he was impeached, Luo Shangshu appeared to be quite calm. According to him, his obedient granddaughter was filial to her elders before she got married. She loved her brothers and sisters and was gentle and chaste. She was a good girl. As the saying goes, there are two sides of the same coin. If his granddaughter really did something wrong, it would be nothing more than that. His meaning could not be more obvious. If his young lady was not well, then it meant that she had changed places. It was a problem of water and soil. Everything was fine before she got married. If there was a problem after she got married, then it must be Jin Qinhuangfu's problem. Furthermore, it was the imperial family's problem. It was them who led his young lady astray. How many people's faces turned green, including Lu Qingdi's face. It was a little well, actually, Lu Qingdi also knew what was going on. Because this matter had not happened yet, he already knew. It was because his family's evil spawn threw a tantrum in front of him in advance. This implied that there was something wrong with those women. Those brothers of his could not bear to see him doing well. They even brought up the matter in Jiangnan. For example, the 3 times he was plotted against, they were all related to them. He clearly did not fight for anything and did not want anything, but there were still people who were unwilling to let him go. Thus, it was better to let his mother take him with her when she died. In front of Lu Qingdi, Li Honyuan took everything on himself in advance. The only one who could still pose a threat to Jingwan was Lu Qingdi. Lu Qingdi's weakness was grasped by Li Honyuan. Once it involved his true love, his IQ dropped. In addition, there was some specious evidence in Li Hongyuan's hands, so he did not think about anything else. Everything was for his son. Therefore, after Jingwan did those things, Lu Qingdi's imagination filled in that his son was borrowing his daughter-in-law's hand to get rid of those unstable factors. The beauties in the other courtyard and so on were just a cover. The real people to get rid of were actually in the Wangfu. His daughter-in-law took the blame for his son. He had no choice but to be kind and really divorce her. Speaking of which, the imperial family did not seem to only divorce a woman. There was only the word sudden death. Moreover, with his son's quota of cursing his wife, if this daughter-in-law was gone, he might be a widower for life. Not only that, thinking about the abundant national treasury and the bulging private purse, that was also old Sixth's daughter-in-law's infamy. With all these, Lu Qingdi felt a little embarrassed when facing Luo Shangshu. Then Lu Qingdi dismissed the memorial and said that he knew his daughter-in-law. She was not a malicious person. It must be those lowly people who angered her. What's more, what she said about being beaten to death was purely false. As the daughter-in-law of the imperial family, she represented the imperial family's face. Such wanton slander was slandering the imperial family. Whoever released the message, if he found out, he would definitely punish them severely. Then, the reward flowed like water into Jin Qinhuangfu and was given to Jin Qinhuangfei. Jingwan looked at the things that filled the courtyard and was speechless. What was that? Many of these things were embezzled by her from Jiangnan. As the monarch of a country, was he really so embarrassed? Moreover, she brought back tens of millions for him. These things were not even worth 100,000. So stingy. Waving her hand, she put them into the treasury. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654088. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Biku Go mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 375. However, who on earth spread the news about what I did? She didn't know anything about it. Jingwan was only wearing a casual undergarment. Leaning against Li Hongyuan, she yawned lazily and twirled a strand of Li Hongyuan's hair with her fingers. Li Hongyuan was only wearing a single garment. He held her hand and kissed her fingertips. Does one mind? It doesn't matter. But obviously, someone is up to no good. Because of Li Hongyuan's sincerity and love, reputation really didn't matter. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything. Li Hongyuan lifted Jingwan's chin and lowered his head to kiss it. Li Hongyuan knew very well that as long as there was no other woman besides Wan by his side, no matter what he said, Wan would bear the name of a jealous woman. Although it was not impossible to get rid of it, it would take a long time, at least to prove it. Only by letting people know his feelings for her and letting him be labeled as affectionate, and let people believe that it wasn't that Wan didn't want to be with him, but that it wasn't that he didn't want her. Only in this way could he wash away the stigma of Wan. It would take a few years, a decade, or even decades, because no one thought that a powerful and influential man would be faithful to a woman. In this way, Li Hongyuan naturally wouldn't be polite. He had to find some benefits from Jingwan. However, his sweetheart could be a jealous woman or a fierce woman, because she would definitely be removed in the future. But she couldn't be labeled as a vicious woman. If her hands were stained with blood and human lives, as long as it was determined now, it couldn't be washed away in the future. Li Hongyuan had a basic idea of the people behind the scenes. These people fell down again and again because they didn't know his role in it, so they had the courage to make trouble for him again and again. Jingwan turned sideways, hooked her arms around his neck, and exchanged a hot and lingering kiss with him. Of course, I believe in you. Her forehead gently rubbed against Li Hongyuan's chin, incomparably intimate, and the scorching breath lingered. The husband and wife were calm, their servants were also calm, and those who knew the truth were also calm. However, there were more people who were not calm, especially after Lu Qingdi did not punish Jin Qinhuangfei, and even gave her a large reward. They became even more unsettled, and some even became restless. The things that Jin Qinhuangfei could do, could they also do it? So this was probably because she didn't know the inside story and didn't have Jingwan's life. So she wanted to have the same illness as her. Well, out of 100 people, at least 99 of them had this kind of illness. The rest were either stupid or had been severely brainwashed by the 3 obedience and 4 virtues. They were all sick, but only Jin Qinhuangfei could valiantly show it. The others couldn't, so one could imagine the feeling in their hearts. Because of Jingwan, the Luo family was greatly affected, including the 2 cousins. Of course, Luo Peishan was still sitting in the position of Minister of Personnel. Even if the 2 in-laws had thoughts, they wouldn't show it. Furthermore, the 2 didn't do anything to their husbands' concubines and Tongfang. Jin Qinhuangfei's time in the capital was also very short. When she first arrived in the capital, Luo Jingshu was already married and had a child. Luo Jingqiang also married not long after, so it didn't affect them. Don't forget, a few days ago, Jingwan also sent a large number of things to the 2 families. Nominally, it was the children's 3 baptisms and full moon gifts. However, other than what was designated for the 2 children, there were many other things. Some of these things, people like them simply couldn't afford to use. As daughters-in-law, Luo Jingshu and Luo Jingqiang weren't stingy with their in-laws' families. No matter what, there was no reason to make things difficult for them. After thinking about it, the one who was affected the most was still Jingwan's concubine-born sister, Luo Jingyu. She was only 1 year younger than Jingwan. Even though she was a concubine-born daughter, she had a grandfather who was the Minister of Personnel and a legitimate sister who was a Qinhuangfei. Naturally, she could be considered a fragrant piece of cake. Many people wanted to marry her, and many people wanted to marry their legitimate sons. Even though it wasn't the eldest legitimate son, it was enough to show their sincerity. When Jingwan's matter came out, many people retreated. Thus, as Luo Jingyu's birth mother, Ji Yinyang, was anxious. Originally, there were many outstanding men with good family backgrounds for her daughter to choose from. But now, Luo Jingyu herself was very calm. Originally, she was a little dull and timid, but Sun Yijia, her eldest sister-in-law, helped her to adjust. She had always followed Jingwan's lead, so she was very open-minded about this matter. Concubine, you don't have to worry. Anyway, I'm still young, so I can wait for another 2 years. Besides, I don't think that third sister's matter is a bad influence. 10 out of 10 people who want to marry me want to get benefits from the Luo family, so they should have the awareness of marrying a jealous woman back home. After all, I have the capital, don't I? If I want to have a woman on my left and right, and if I want to get a lot of benefits from my wife's family, how can there be such an easy thing? A truly ambitious man will not put too much thought into the harem. So naturally, he will be relatively indifferent to women. In my case, it's purely a marriage of benefits, and for the sake of the future, such a man is the best choice. Moreover, this matter is obviously strange. We all know what kind of person third sister is. Although she doesn't like concubines, even if she wants to deal with those women, she will definitely do such a vicious thing. Just look at grandmother and the others. Who knows, in a few days, it will be completely different. Thus, Yin-Yang, you can rest assured that my marriage will not go wrong. Who knows, I might be able to choose the best one. When Ji Yin-Yang heard this, it seemed that this was the truth. Her heart gradually calmed down. However, when she looked at her eldest daughter again, she had a new level of respect for her. Was she really that dull and timid child? Luo Jingyu looked at her Yin-Yang and smiled. She lowered her head and continued to embroider. Third sister-in-law not only sent people to teach me, but also brought me here from time to time. If I don't make any progress, wouldn't I be letting down third sister's good intentions? What does this have to do with your third sister? Luo Jingyu raised her head again and looked at her Yin-Yang with a strange expression. If third sister didn't ask third sister-in-law, do you think third sister-in-law would pay attention to me? Ji Yin-Yang's face was somewhat flustered. She really was muddle-headed. However, she wasn't anxious at all. She was too lazy to care about this daughter. Serving Furin was the most important thing. Other than Jingwan, who was at the center of the vortex, the other person who received the most attention was probably Li Hongyuan. Although Jin Qinhuang had spoiled those women in the past and completely did not touch them, but he had always spent money to support them. Now, all of them were dealt with by Jin Qinhuang Fei. To a certain extent, it was undoubtedly 2 slaps on the face. It was simply trampling his dignity on the ground. His face was completely lost, and no man could tolerate it. Thus, he was caught by his brothers and laughed at. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6654091. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Biku Mobile Reading Website, mbicken.com. Chapter 376. Li Hongyuan didn't say to accept, nor did he say to refuse. Prince Kong just minded his own business and let people send the beauties out. When Li Hongyuan saw them, his lips curled into a smile. Triplets were indeed triplets. Their identical faces were not a lie, and they were indeed quite beautiful. The only slight difference was probably due to their gender. 2 females and 1 male. He was lustful and liked both men and women. This was a reputation he had created himself. However, he had never blatantly sent any male prostitutes to him. Due to his special use, he had once raised 2 or 3 in the courtyard. Prince Kong clapped his hands and smiled. I just knew that 6th brother would like it. Someone come. Send the person to Jin Qinhuang Fu. Be sure to hand the person over to Jin Qinhuang Fei, and let her take good care of the person. However, no matter what, it was sent by Ben Wang. There is no need to remind. I believe that 6th daimyo will settle the person down properly. Eldest imperial brother. Li Hongyuan opened his mouth to speak. Prince Kong waved his hand. Sixth brother doesn't need to be polite. We are all brothers of the same family. If you need anything in the future, you only need to tell this older brother. Today, Li Hongyuan held a string of beads in his hand, fiddling with each bead. He didn't speak, but that expression of a smile that wasn't a smile made people scalp numb. There was a saying, some people want to court death, and you can't stop them. Today, Ninth Wangya was the host and invited his brothers to sit down. Prince Kong only prepared a big gift for Jin Qinhuang. At this time, the others didn't get any benefits, but they didn't mind at all. Each and every one of them had a smile on their faces and were respectful to each other. The scene looked exceptionally harmonious. After the beauties were sent away, Prince Kang's personal attendants led 2 guards of the Wangfu to the gates of Jin Qinhuangfu. With a smile on their faces, they politely stated the purpose of their visit. The guards of Jin Qinhuangfu were expressionless, but the expression in their eyes was a bit strange. They were actually Li Hongyuan's personal guards. The reason why they were watching the gate was because after Jingwan was injured, she was given an additional punishment of 50 whips. They were very clear about their master's thoughts towards Wang Fei. The reason why Wang Fei did so much was because she was forced by Wang Ye. Now that they had sent beauties, and even sent them into Wang Fei's hands, they only wanted to hee-hee in their hearts, gloating over their misfortune as they waited to see how these people would end up. He didn't show any of his thoughts on his face. How can such a lowly person walk through the gate of the prince's mansion? Send him to the Jiaomen. Prince Kang's personal attendant's face was a bit green, but in the end, he was still able to hold it in. Our family wants to serve our Wang Ye. This means we would have to trouble Tong Bing Wang Fei Nyang Yang to ask her to bring a person in. Is that possible? As for handing it over to Jin Qinhuang Fei, could it be that they really had to enter through the corner gate? This wasn't just about his own face. It was also related to his Wang Ye's face. Therefore, it would be easier to explain after returning. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he couldn't. Then you wait. Immediately after entering the gate, he called for a small steward to pass on the message back to the inner courtyard. It could be considered to be reporting layer by layer, so this speed really couldn't be fast. In addition, there were people who deliberately neglected them. By the time the message reached Jingwan, it had already been a while. Jingwan gave an O with interest, her fingers lightly tapping the table. It was said that one is marked by the company one keeps. She was really influenced by Li Hongyuan. Qing Zhu, have people prepare a ceremonial stand. I want to go to Prince Kangqing's fu. Guards and the like, bring more. Although the people around Jingwan had different temperaments, none of them were stupid. What Jingwan wanted to do, they quickly understood and completely didn't feel that there was anything wrong with their Wang Fei doing this. Originally, Wang Ye and Wang Fei were just living their own lives. It was none of other people's business. Each and every one of them had to jump around and make a ruckus. They couldn't even clean up their own moo of land and still had to stretch their hands into other people's backyard. This kind of person clearly needed to be taught a lesson. If they didn't show some severity, they wouldn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As time passed, they still didn't see any movement in Jin Qinhuangfu. Being ignored like this, Prince Kang's personal attendant's face became worse and worse. However, this was after all the front gate of the living king of Hell's Wangfu. He naturally didn't dare to be rash. If he angered the living king of Hell, their Wang Ye would still be beaten black and blue. Although he still had some face in front of his Wang Ye, in front of Jin Qinhuang, he wasn't even worth a fart. But this task wasn't completed. He couldn't go back. He forced himself to smile. Can I ask what? Wang Fei has her own ideas on how to do things. What should be done is done. There's no need to ask more. The Imperial Guard didn't say anything else and directly blocked his way. A certain Gongong's heart was filled with resentment. What arrogance! Even if she was a Wang Fei, she still had to have her own man to back her up. Otherwise, she was just a figurehead. Now with Jin Qinhuang's face, let's see how long your Wang Fei can last. Thinking about it, he still had to force a smile on his face. We are servants. We naturally don't have the guts to ask about our master's matters. It's just that this matter isn't short. Our Wangya. The Imperial Guard sneered. No one asked you to wait here. Not serving your master well. Naturally, it's your fault. His face was green and white, very wonderful. Just as he was about to say something, there was finally movement in the Wangfu. So he closed his mouth. But this movement didn't seem to be right. The ceremonial racks were properly set up. 2 groups of Imperial Guards. There were close to 100 people, followed by a row of servant girls and mama serving. Like stars surrounding the moon, they clustered around Jean Qinhuang Fei, who was dressed more casually, as she came out. Speaking of this, Jean Qinhuang Fei's attire really didn't match this kind of lineup. But Kang Qinhuang's personal attendant only felt inexplicable fear and trepidation, feeling that something bad was about to happen. As Jean Qinhuang Fei walked in, he hurriedly lowered his head. Jingwan walked in and stood in front of Kang Qinhuang's personal attendant. This servant greets Wang Fei Nyang Yang. He hurriedly paid his respects. No matter how many twists and turns he had in his heart before, now he didn't dare to show it at all. You're sending beauties to our Wangya on behalf of your Wangya? Jingwan spoke softly, sounding warm and gentle, with a faint trace of laughter. Kang Qinhuang's personal attendant's legs and stomach trembled for no reason. He was clearly a completely different person from Jean Qinhuang. His words and actions could be said to be 2 extremes, but the feeling he gave people was so similar. Wang Fei Nyang Yang, it's these people behind you? 1 man and 2 women? Kang Qinhuang is very thoughtful and considerate towards our Wangya. Kang Qinhuang's personal attendant didn't dare to answer. The things that Kang Qinhuang had repeatedly warned, don't mention saying it out loud. He didn't even dare to say it out loud. Jingwan smiled. All right, let's go. Go where? He couldn't help stuttering. He was so scared that he forgot the proper etiquette. Go where? Naturally, it's to go to Prince Kang's mansion. Your prince has such good intentions. How can you just accept it for no reason? As the saying goes, there's a need to reciprocate politeness. Jingwan smiled and explained good-naturedly. Kang Qinhuang's personal attendant only had fear left. And he thought of a possibility. Jean Qinhuang Fei. How could Jean Qinhuang Fei do this? May I ask Wang Fei Nyang Yang, which beauty has been prepared for our Wangya? The one that Wang Fei Nyang Yang has prepared must be a beauty capable of causing the downfall of a city. A first-class beauty. I'm not too clear on this. I think you should be more clear on this. After all, you've trained her. Wang Fei Nyang Yang, this is our Wangya's gift to Jean Qinhuang Yi, so I know this Wang Fei has already accepted it. Since I've accepted it, she naturally belongs to my Jean Qinhuang Fu. Then, if this Wang Fei wants to send her out, to whom? This Wang Fei has the final say. I personally think that since she was trained by Kang Qinhuang Fu, she must be trained according to Kang Qinhuang Ye's preferences. Giving her to him, I believe that it is most appropriate. But this is for Jean Qinhuang Yi. The weather in the middle of October could make people sweat, but they didn't dare to reach out to wipe it. Oh, this means that the person sent to our Wangya. Can she surpass this Wang Fei? This Wang Fei can't touch her, can't handle her, and can't even speak of her? Wang Fei Nyang Yang is thinking too much. This servant absolutely doesn't mean that. Then why don't you tell this princess? What do you mean? If you can't explain it clearly, this Wang Fei can't help but find your Wangya to discuss it. That's not right. Kang Qinhuang Yi is still eldest uncle. How can I, as a younger sister-in-law, find him? It's just that this Kang Qinhuang Fu doesn't have a Wang Fei, so I can only ask to see the Empress Nyang Yang. Kang Qinhuang's close attendant's legs went soft and directly knelt. Wang Fei Nyang Yang, please calm your anger. It's this servant who doesn't have a brain and spoke nonsense. Pa. She slapped herself a few times and didn't hesitate at all. You are the mistress of Jean Qinhuang Fu. It's just a few lowly servants. You naturally can handle them. Jingwan slightly nodded. It's good that you know. Jingwan reached out and put her hand on Gong Mama's arm to get on the carriage. 2 head maidservants followed to serve, and the rest followed at the side. This lineup, compared to a complete Qinhuang's ceremonial procession, was not far off. The majestic procession, the destination, was Kong Qinhuang Fu. Kong Qinhuang's close attendant stood up while trembling, wanting to immediately report to Kong Qinhuang. However, several guards of Jin Qinhuang Fu directly drew their swords and looked like they were about to make a move. Please go ahead. Like this, it was not only the three beauties who were frightened. Even the two guards of Kong Qinhuang were sweating. It was obvious that they were not prepared to let them go to the 9th Wangyes, Fu, to report to Kong Qinhuang. Kong Qinhuang Fu and Jin Qinhuang Fu were not on the same street, but they were not far apart. It was just that when the ceremonial procession of Jin Qinhuang Fu arrived at the entrance of Kong Qinhuang Fu, the guards were lined up and the maidservants and biddies were clustered around. The entrance of the carriage was facing the entrance of Kong Qinhuang Fu. At a glance, one would know that it was not a good thing. The guards guarding the entrance acted as if they were facing a great enemy, their left hand clenching the scabbard and their right hand clenching the hilt. Jingwan got down from the carriage and walked straight to the entrance. The four guards who were about to stop her were unceremoniously taken down by the guards of Jin Qinhuang Fu. Jingwan stepped through the entrance of Kong Qinhuang Fu as if she was entering her own home. After entering, the ordinary servants did not dare to approach, and those who had the guts to approach with fear and trepidation were all directly knocked down. In the end, the deputy head of the guards of Kong Qinhuang Fu hurriedly rushed over with people. Originally, under normal circumstances, when the Wang Fei of other Wang Fu came to visit, it had nothing to do with them. But now it was completely different. It was clear that they did not come with good intentions. The guards of Jin Qinhuang Fu took the lead and stood in front of Jingwan to protect her. Jingwan waved her hand to let them withdraw and walked forward as if nothing had happened. They were clearly a group of tall and strong men, but when she moved forward, they could only retreat. It was as if they were not facing a defenseless and weak woman, but a scourge and a fierce beast. The other party was a Qin Wang Fei. Not to mention her noble status, the most important point was that she was the Wang Fei of the living king of hell. If there was even the slightest bit of injury, Jin Qinhuang might bring people to flatten Kong Qinhuang Fu. Their master might be fine, but they would definitely not have a good end. If Wang Fei Nyang has something to say, there is no harm in letting this humble one pass on the message. While retreating, they tried to speak calmly. It's none of your business. Get out of the way for Ben Wang Fei. Jingwan did not speak harshly, but her expression was calm, without any ripples, and had an indescribable dignity. Wang Fei Nyang, please forgive us. Guarding Kong Qinhuang Fu is our duty. Please forgive us. If they could, they also wanted to hide far away. So you say that you must stop Ben Wang Fei? All right, let's see if you can stop me. Talking was one thing. When Jingwan stepped forward, they could only retreat. What are you doing? Still not retreating. A woman's voice came from behind the guards. Hearing this, they all breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly retreated to both sides. Greetings, Wang Fei Nyang. We didn't know Wang Fei Nyang had come, so we didn't go out to meet you. Wang Fei Nyang, please forgive us. This beauty was simple but dignified. She was one of Prince Kang's side concubines, the former Princess Kang's younger sister. When Prince Kang's wife was in mourning, she entered the family to take care of Princess Kang's children. When Prince Kong Qinhuang Fu did not have a legal wife, she was the mistress. As for the other side concubine, she was from Prince Kang's sworn enemy. When she entered the Fu, she was sent to a remote and broken courtyard. However, she was still a beauty and had been abused by Prince Kong many times. Jingwan sized up this side concubine and thought that it was a pity. Although Prince Kong was Lu Qingdi's eldest legitimate son, and his status was more honorable than the other brothers, he was essentially scum, the scum of scum. This girl could have had her own beautiful marriage, but because of her sister's dying request, she entered Prince Kong Qinhuang Fu and became a side concubine. Probably no one asked for her opinion and thoughts. Although she had not been in the capital for long, she had not heard any news about this side concubine. If she was really willing, it was impossible for her to not have a sense of existence. No need for formalities. Jingwan was invited to enter the inner courtyard. Jin Qinhuangfu's bodyguards stayed in the outer courtyard, but the rest of the people followed in, including Prince Kang's personal attendants and the triplets' beauties. Not going to the guest room, not going to the reception pavilion. Jingwan stayed in the garden. That side concubine did not ask Jingwan what she wanted to do, and just stayed by her side. Everyone says that Prince Kang Qinhuangfu's rear courtyard is filled with beauties like clouds. Ben Wangfei has no other intention today, just wanted to broaden my horizons. Jingwan smiled and said lightly. That side concubine looked thoughtfully at Jingwan and directly ordered people to gather all the concubines in each courtyard. The phrase beauties like clouds was not an exaggeration. Compared to Jin Qinhuangfu's rear courtyard, it was much more exciting and dazzling. However, in this kind of situation, there was only one that attracted the most attention. Because it was too conspicuous, those who didn't know would think that the other party was the real mistress of this rear courtyard. No matter if it was the clothes on her body or that style, it was far better than the side concubine next to Jingwan. This person was Yaorao. Yaorao met Jingwan's gaze. She had seen Jingwan once, but she was not very clear. But Jingwan had a deep impression of her. Suddenly, Jingwan hooked her lips and smiled. Yaorao's back went cold as she had a bad premonition. Jingwan turned her head and said a few words. Although it made people confused, Prince Kang's side concubine still let people do as she said. An arhut bed was set up with curtains around it. Then, under Jingwan's signal, Gong Mama walked towards Yaorao. Yaorao hastily retreated, and her maidservants tried to block Gong Mama. But how could they? They were slapped away by Gong Mama. And, at that moment, Gong Mama clearly felt that those two maidservants were trying to fight back. Clearly, they were martial artists. Gong Mama sneered in her heart and didn't mind. She grabbed Yaorao. The other concubines, who were originally clustered around her, were frightened and quickly retreated while screaming. Yaorao knew that she could not avoid it. To avoid suffering, she followed Gong Mama's strength and walked away. Wangfei Nyang. This concubine doesn't know if this concubine has a. Yaorao's question was still calm, but it instantly turned into a scream because Gong Mama tore her clothes in front of everyone. Yaorao did not have time to say anything else and resisted in panic. Speaking of which, although she was originally a loose woman, it was different now. She must maintain her chastity in order to have a foothold in Prince Kang Fu. But her struggle was like a little chick in Gong Mama's hands. Yaorao was stripped naked and thrown into the curtains. Then, Gong Mama pulled out the man among the three beauties. Jingwan's intention was self-evident. Many concubines looked askance and panicked in their hearts. No matter what method was used to train a man, he was a man after all. Gong Mama pulled him into the curtains and began to tear his clothes. For her, this kind of thing naturally did not matter. Gong Mama soon came out and casually threw the torn clothes in her hands on the ground. In the curtains, there were screams one after another. However, the voice that was slightly masculine was louder than the other one. https://www.bicon.com/11/11807/6654095. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicon.com mobile edition, that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.